Chapter 2648. Yi Mingxi's voice was cold and emotionless. However, her aura was extremely powerful. She could threaten the lives of Jian Qinxue and Yan Yunbei even before the heavenly tribulation. Yan Yunbei's face was solemn. He did not expect Yi Mingxi to reach this stage. The long wait was not scary, but she was too young and her state of mind was unstable. This led to her entering the Ruthless Path. Now, she had formed the Ruthless Path seal. Should we inform our husband to come back and take a look? Jian Qinxue asked helplessly. Yan Yunbei was mature and steady. He thought carefully. Those in the fourth state did not allow them to stay in the immortal world. How could he let Yi Qinghan come back now? After she passes the heavenly tribulation, we will go to the Void Ridge together, Yan Yunbei said in a low voice. In the North Sea, tribulation clouds rolled. The Ruthless Path was not tolerated by heaven and earth. The thunder tribulation was more terrifying than Yan Yunbei's and Jian Qinxue's. However, Yi Mingxi did not even frown. It seemed that she did not care about her life at all. Whoosh! Boom! Lightning struck from the dark clouds. Huge waves surged in all directions, drowning everything. The waves even reached the North Sea island. The waves even reached 1,000 meters high, crossing the mountains and rushing into the interior of the North Sea island. Yi Mingxi did not even dodge. She waved her hand and grabbed the lightning. The Ruthless Path seal was attached to her palm. She kneaded the lightning into a ball of light energy. The sharp energy flowed through her limbs and bones, shattering her flesh and making her blood drip. However, she was not afraid. Whoosh! Boom! The ball of lightning energy was thrown into the depths of the tribulation cloud. It collided with the lightning and rushed into the galaxy. Whoosh! 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 Yi Mingxi rushed into the tribulation cloud. She wanted to crush the clouds. The Ruthless Path roared, causing thousands of Daos to tremble. Endless mysterious path covered her body. Divine light shot into the sky and formed a 10-light barrier. No matter how the lightning attacked, it could not break through her defense. Destroy! Yi Mingxi formed a seal with her palms. The Ruthless Path seal blasted out from her palms. It formed a palm print with a murderous aura. It went against the sky and the sea. A weak figure could block the sky and the sea. Like father, like son, like wolf siblings. Although Yi Mingxi and Yi Qinghan's souls were not blood-related siblings, they had been influenced by each other and were completely assimilated. The two of them were truly each more ruthless than the other. Bang! Thousands of lightning bolts clashed with the sky-covering palm print. The sea was shaken and sunk by dozens of meters, and the waves crashed in all directions. Crack, 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 crack. The lightning actually broke apart. Yi Mingxi forcefully ascended to the heavens, but the tribulation clouds seemed to be enraged. Countless lightning bolts struck down, shattering the emotionless Dao seal. Yi Mingxi was blasted into the sea. Whoosh! Yi Mingxi slammed her palm into the sea. Her body soared into the sky once again as she continued to charge towards the tribulation cloud. Once, twice. Yi Mingxi was blasted down countless times. The more she fought, the braver she became. Yan Yunbei and Jian Qinxue were stunned. On the other side, although Yi Chentian and Medusa were heaven-defying, their lightning tribulations were weak compared to the lightning tribulations here. The two of them felt that their lightning tribulations were not scary. They were much more relaxed. Half a month later, Medusa and Yi Chentian successfully passed the tribulations. Yi Mingxi was blasted down more than 1,000,000 times. Her body was destroyed and the Ruthless Path was rebuilt. Her cultivation was becoming more and more heaven-defying. Her Ruthless Path was becoming purer and purer. She had almost reached perfection. Once she broke through to the Big Brother realm, Yi Mingxi's combat power might be as crazy and violent as Yi Qinghan. The heartless Tao was not tolerated by the heavens and earth. Yi Mingxi had fought against the lightning tribulation for half a year. Her entire person seemed to have merged with the heartless Tao. There was no aura on her body at all. She was completely emotionless. This might be the legendary saint. The lightning tribulations seemed to be tired. It could not kill Yimingshi. Instead, Yimingshi fought bravely and approached the tribulation clouds several times. Ruthless path seal, lawless. Whoosh! Yimingshi exploded. She formed a seal with her palms. Her eyes were really lawless. All laws and principles became illusions. Once they were broken, they would be broken. She crushed everything as easily as breaking dry weed. She swept through the lightning and blasted into the depths of the tribulation clouds. Boom! There seemed to be stars exploding in the depths of the tribulation clouds that covered the sky. The airwaves spread for countless miles. It was like a master in the fourth state had exploded with a peak attack. The tribulation clouds dispersed. The stars shone brightly in the sky. The evil aura was completely dispersed. Whoosh! Yimingshi's celestial body was bright. Her celestial spiritual power evolved into a celestial robe. It emitted a dense celestial light and had an oppressive aura. Even Jian Chenxue and Yen Yunbei felt the terrifying pressure. Jian Chenxue was the mother of the world. Even Emperor Yi had to give in to her. Since she was young, she had been taking care of Wang Shi and Yimingshi. She was not afraid of Yimingshi now, but she was very concerned about her emotions and Dao heart. Jian Chenxue took a deep breath and asked seriously, "Mingxi, are you okay?" Yimingshi might not care about what others thought, but could she really be emotionless? This sister-in-law was like a mother and a sister. She had been taking care of her daily life. How could she not have any feelings for her? Sister-in-law, the ruthless Tao is not as scary as you think. Don't worry. Let's go to the Void Ridge. I don't need to settle down. Although Yimingshi was emotionless, there were still some emotions in her words. It was just that she suppressed them. Fu Jianqinshu heard this and could not help but breathe a sigh of relief. She reached out and held Yimingshi's lily-white hand. She sighed and said, "Ah, you fool. Actually, you don't have to take this step at all. Our husband will also worry about you." Yimingshi's fingertips trembled slightly. She glanced at Jianqinshu from the corner of her eyes. She wanted to break free, but when she saw the worry in her eyes, she finally let her hold on and did not break free. At this moment, Yi Chentian and Medusa had only settled down a little. However, their combat power could not be underestimated. When they saw that Yimingshi had finished her tribulation, they immediately surrounded her. "Auntie, you are actually so much stronger than me. I called myself Great God Chentian in vain. I feel so inferior now," Yi Chentian said, pretending to be sad. Although Yi Chentian was Yi Qinghan's son, he did not have many advantages. In comparison, many young people in the Kuang Manor were stronger than him. Now, Yimingshi, Lin Wutian and the others were far stronger than him. They could even kill him instantly. Yimingshi saw that her nephew was deliberately trying to make her happy. She wanted to comfort him with a smile, but she could not. She only replied coldly, "It is very embarrassing." Yi Chentian was speechless. Cough, cough, Medusa, Yen Yunbei and the others coughed dryly. Then Yen Yunbei said, "Let's go to the Void Ridge. The noble battle has been going on for almost 1,000 years. I wonder how the Kuang Manor is doing now. The 5 of us should at least be able to fight." Yimingshi looked back indifferently at the Kuang Manor's camp. Nine Nether was still standing at the gate, looking worried. She asked crisply, "Senior, do you still want to watch the noble battle? I can take you there." Nine Nether was stunned. He wanted to agree, but Jian Chenxue immediately stopped him. "No, if my husband sees you being taken to the Void Ridge, he will be very angry." Yen Yunbei also nodded. He did not agree to let Nine Netherlord go to the Void Ridge. After all, he was too weak. The aftermath could kill him countless times. Nine Netherlord did not want them to worry, so he said with a smile, "It's okay. I won't go to the Void Ridge, but you must all come back." Yen Yunbei cupped his fists and bowed. Then, he took the lead and rushed into the void. Swoosh, 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 the 5 of them rushed into the void as fast as lightning. Yi Chuntian and Medusa were gradually left behind. Yimingshi looked calm, but her speed was much faster than the others. She did not even have a weapon, but her aura was overwhelming. Chapter 2649. The battle between Noble Plane and Noble Plane was like a fleeting cloud. In a flash, 1,000 years had passed. Yi Qinghan didn't think that he would be in seclusion for 1,000 years. Moreover, he hadn't woken up yet. In this 1,000 years, he didn't comprehend other technique. He focused on comprehending the 9 levels of human Tao. With the support of the human Tao Emperor Pagoda, he successfully grasped the 5th level of human Tao. The first level was derivation. The second level was nirvana. The third level was void. The 4th level was human soul. The 5th level was divine annihilation. Unfortunately, he stopped at the 5th level. The 6th level was immortal fall. The 7th level was emperor annihilation. The 8th level was world sculpting. The 9th level was creation. At the 8th level, it was to shatter the void and reconstruct the world of nothingness. It was to create a world that wasn't inferior to the immortal world. It was to kill primordial immortal emperors. Everything was void. At the 9th level, time, space, the 5 elements, and the myriad laws lost their meaning. It could be called the ancestor, creating the world with a wave of his hand. However, the 9th level was only a virtual concept. Yi Qinghan didn't even know what the 9th level of profound meaning was. This was because he could only reach the 6th level of the pagoda. He couldn't cultivate the 6th level of profound meaning. In 1,000 years, he had comprehended 5 layers of ultimacies and over 300 kinds of martial arts. On top of that, he had also combined the ultimacies of the 300 martial arts into a single martial art, which was named the God-slaying immortal vanquishing grand martial art. As soon as he executed it, the weather would change and the mountains and rivers would change color. In this 1,000 years, the owner had woken up a few times because of invaders. However, they were all killed by her alone. Many great powers had their eyes on Jiangnan Immortal Valley. However, this place was occupied by 2 great experts, the owner and Yi Qinghan. Both of them were extremely powerful and could fight against the strongest 4th form. Even if a single power coveted it, they couldn't do anything. On this day, Yi Qinghan slowly opened his eyes. His 2nd-degree immortal soul was extremely powerful. With a flash of his divine sense, it covered 1,000 miles. His terrifying aura was restrained in his chest. His majestic aura surged through the mountains and rivers, directly waking up the owner who was far away. The current Yi Qinghan was no longer who he was 1,000 years ago. After 1,000 years of accumulation, he never slacked off. His understanding of the abstruse divine arts had increased by a few levels, and his battle prowess was also several times stronger. Now that he was fighting Zhong Jingfu again, he didn't need the immemorial yin-yang sword to be in an invincible position. The owner stood up on the mountain peak and looked down at Yi Qinghan from afar. She was stunned by the look in his eyes. It wasn't that she had never seen a master in her life, but she had never seen such a look in his eyes. It was fierce, evil, and somewhat righteous. It gave people a feeling of reverence and fear. "You're awake? Do you still want to continue your seclusion?" The owner looked into the distance and asked in a crisp voice. Yi Qinghan's eyes were like torches. His figure flashed and appeared in front of the owner. He grinned and replied, "I want to kill someone, but it's not the time yet. When the entire Quang Manor comes out of seclusion, I'll help you wipe out wherever you want to go. If you continue your seclusion, you'll miss out on a good show. The experience gained from other people's battles is far more than what we gain from seclusion." The owner took a deep breath and said in a low voice, "Coming out of nowhere is a good show. And owner, you're so impatient. Where's the calm state of mind you had when you teased me? Yi Qinghan looked down from above and raised the owner's chin. He looked straight into her eyes and asked. The owner was stunned by Yi Qinghan's actions. Then, she reacted and couldn't help but fly into a rage. She waved her hand and slapped Yi Qinghan fiercely. You bastard, how dare you tease me? I'll cripple your claws. The owner roared hysterically. This slap was filled with true fury and could kill an ordinary second-degree realm cultivator. Hua! Yi Qinghan's figure flashed and he distanced himself from the owner. He stood in the distance and said indifferently, That year when you teased me, you even stripped me of my clothes. I'm a vengeful person. I'm giving you face by not stripping you of your clothes this time. Boom! The owner's attack missed and she clasped her palms together. The stars reversed and she slapped out fiercely towards Yi Qinghan. You bastard, that's not what you said back then. The void in front of them collapsed and the energy caught up with Yi Qinghan. However, he didn't dodge. Instead, he crossed his hands and the energy in his body poured out. His aura soared and was extremely domineering. God slaying and immortal vanquishing. Boom! A large palm print appeared in front of Yi Qinghan. It went against the void and clashed with the owner's energy. The void collapsed completely and a mountain was swallowed up. That was then and this is now. Today, I came out of seclusion to seek revenge. Owner, anger is harmful to your body. Be careful that wrinkles appear on your beautiful face from anger. Yi Qinghan casually slapped the owner's palm print. The two remarkable powers clashed and the energy swept across the mountains and rivers, shaking the heaven and earth. Boom! The two palms collided and flames soared into the sky. Divine rays shot in all directions. Hua! The two remarkable powers were equally matched. However, Yi Qinghan used all his strength while the owner only used 80% of her strength. Boom! Bam bam bam! Yi Qinghan was smashed into the ground by the force of the qi and was forced to retreat dozens of steps. However, he wasn't in a sorry state. He steadied himself and placed his hands behind his back. He calmly said, Anti-workshop owner, I've said it before. The owner crushed the void under her feet and her body swayed. Although she didn't retreat, she could see that Yi Qinghan's improvement was exaggerated. He could be compared to a person in the fourth state. If he used the 9-linked gourd, it was hard to tell who would win. Kill gods and destroy immortals? The owner frowned. She could see Yi Qinghan's ambition from this name. In the future, the Yen clan and the primordial bloodline would fight again, and it wouldn't be a small battle. You want to take revenge for the Yen clan? The owner asked in a low voice. Yi Qinghan smiled calmly and plucked a leaf. With a light flick, the space was cut open, but the leaf was also shattered into dust. I am like this leaf. I can take revenge, but I will also die without leaving any trace. Do you think I will be so impulsive? Yi Qinghan asked. Then why did you name the remarkable power you comprehended this way? The owner asked in a muffled voice. Yi Qinghan shrugged and replied indifferently, because this ability is meant to kill the primordial god race and the immortal spirits. Even if I don't kill them, they will force me to kill them sooner or later. I actually hope that Auntie won't be my enemy. After all, you know me well. I will definitely take revenge, but I will also repay kindness. You teased me and I will repay the kindness you and immortal Emperor Qing Zun gave me. Therefore, I will ensure that you become an emperor. If you still want to be my enemy, it would be too unwise. Hiss hiss hiss. Who? The owner took a few deep breaths and then exhaled. She stared at Yi Qinghan. She could see that he didn't just want to protect her. He wanted her to become emperor. I have the primordial bloodline. Aren't you afraid that the hatred can't be erased and will sprout and take root? The owner reminded. Yi Qinghan was silent for a while and said seriously, If you can't even control your own will and want to become emperor, then it will be very laughable. I am confident that I can control my hands and brain, but I am afraid that you can't. Besides, How much hatred can there be between the primordial bloodline and the Yen clan? The ones with the most hatred are the primordial god race and the primordial immortal race. His Highness Gu Jiutian isn't afraid, so what are you afraid of? The owner thought for a while and couldn't help but smile. She shook her head and said no more. Let's fight in the depth. I want to see how strong you are to dare to tease me at this time. If you are defeated by me, just you wait, the owner warned provocatively. Yi Qinghan smiled confidently. His figure flashed as he took the lead and stepped into the depth. He said proudly, "If I lose, you can punish me however you want. If I win, I will let you experience the feeling of being stripped naked." Boom! You are courting death. The owner was furious. She pushed the stars with her fist, reversing time and space, and directly appeared behind Yi Qinghan. Chapter 2650. The owner had been noble all his life and had never been defiled. Today, he was teased twice by Yi Qinghan. How could he not be angry? The two chased each other and turned into two beams of light that rushed into the deepest part of the Void Ridge. After a few days, they arrived at a remote area of the Void Ridge. Further out was the endless void and deep cliff. The entire Void Ridge floated in the void. Boom! Yi Qinghan stopped at the edge of the mountain. When he saw the angry face of the owner rushing over, he couldn't help but laugh in schadenfreude. You're still laughing. You won't be able to laugh later. Boom, boom, boom. Whoosh! The owner mobilized the power of the stars and swept it in all directions, sealing off all escape routes. One of his supernatural powers was so powerful that the stars moved. Open, Yi Qinghan's aura was like a rainbow. He stepped on the mountain peak and punched with his right fist with endless power. He wanted to break through the mountains and rivers. His supernatural powers were attached and his aura swallowed up the mountains and rivers. Boom! The two of them fought crazily without showing any mercy. Every punch and palm carried the power of a god slaying god. A single mistake could lead to death, but what they wanted was this feeling of death. Only then would they have a breakthrough in their combat experience. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh! Yi Qinghan and the owner of the workshop escaped into the sky and the ground. They even left the Void Ridge and entered the void. Some nobles wanted to hide here, but they were scared out of their wits and didn't dare to stay any longer. Flames and aurora intertwined and the stars changed their trajectories. The two broke through the void and entered the depths of the Milky Way. Some meteors fell and were used as weapons by the two. They were shattered in the blink of an eye. Yi Qinghan's body and every muscle and bone were killing weapons. Yan Zu's right arm was especially powerful. Once it exploded, even the owner had to retreat. The owner kept looking for Yi Qinghan's weakness and flaws. He attacked mercilessly as if he really wanted to kill him. Yi Qinghan was almost killed a few times, but his powerful close combat skills allowed him to escape perfectly. He kept improving his defense and attack, and his battle power was increasing rapidly. At the same time, Yi Qinghan was also looking for the owner's weak points and weaknesses. He attacked mercilessly and the battle lasted for 10 years. They constantly shifted positions until they arrived at a huge dead planet. There was no air and even sound could not travel. However, the two of them had extraordinary control over their Tao. They could still fight here, and could even pierce through the earth and create a chasm of 10,000 miles. Yi Qinghan was no match for the owner, but he was like a cockroach that couldn't be killed. The energy in his body was limitless, and even the owner was almost out of energy. He was panting and his face was red. Yi Qinghan didn't have it easy either. Even after mobilizing the power of the human Tao Emperor Pagoda, he was still so tired that he couldn't even straighten his back. Huff, huff, huff. Yi Qinghan panted heavily. He leaned on his legs and bent over to look at the owner. With an exhausted expression, he said, "Auntie-owner, I didn't expect you to last longer than me. The head of the workshop, Jian Su, was leaning against a large rock. He was so tired that he could barely stand. He looked at Yi Qinghan angrily and cursed, "Little bastard, if this consort didn't teach you a lesson today, you would have overturned the heavens." "Teach me a lesson? If there's no other way, why don't we use the sky as our blanket and the earth as our bed and change the way we fight?" Yi Qinghan mocked disdainfully. The owner was so angry that the hand holding the sword trembled. He wanted nothing more than to stab Yi Qinghan with hundreds of holes. "Idiot! It's not fun to anger me." The owner straightened her body and pointed her sword at the stars. She instantly controlled billions of miles of stars. Endless power poured into her body. Yi Qinghan's pupils shrank. He didn't expect this woman to be even more ruthless than him. She actually used a forbidden technique that she couldn't control. The strongest attack of the starry sky reversal. Once fully controlled, this attack was equivalent to a peak primordial divine general's all-out attack. It might even surpass it and be second only to a primordial immortal emperor. Yi Qinghan wanted to admit his mistake and stop the owner from going crazy, but she was already like an arrow on the bow. He had no choice but to attack. His hair stood on end. He formed a seal with both hands. The seal of the 9-ringed gourd bloomed with divine light. The 9 gourds opened at the same time. Whoosh! The flame ancestral arm was activated. His black hair danced wildly. He looked like a primordial war god himself. Yi Qinghan planted his feet on the ground and sprouted root. He gripped the chaotic frenzy with both hands. It had evolved to the level of a primordial sacred weapon. Its chaotic power grew stronger and stronger. The blade met the light of the stars. God slaying and immortal vanquishing. Yi Qinghan used his full strength this time. He raised his blade and slashed at the owner. He wanted to defeat her first. Roar! Boom! Whoosh whoosh whoosh! The immortal sword fell. The 9 heavens collapsed. The sword energy tore through the rocky ground. Smoke and dust rose. Bang! Crack crack crack! The immortal sword landed on Yi Qinghan's upper hand and clashed with the primal chaos saber billet. In a split second, the oars under Yi Qinghan's feet were shattered, and the shroud was crushed into powder by the force. His body sank deep into the ground as he faced the galaxy against the sky grand theurgy with his saber naked. "Ah!" Yi Qinghan roared. His blade shattered the shackles. His left arm was split open. His skin was torn and his flesh was mangled. His golden body was dyed red. Boom! A deep abyss appeared on the ground. Yi Qinghan was smashed directly into the depths of the dead star. The huge dead star almost collapsed. Some rocks broke free from their bindings and rushed into the void, forming huge meteors. Yi Qinghan's counterattack was also terrifying. The terrifying force blasted the owner into the void. She flipped continuously in the air and lost control. At this moment, Yi Qinghan dragged the 7-foot heavy blade into the abyss. He held his blade horizontally. The friction between the two sides of the abyss caused flames to rise. Even so, he could not stop his falling body. Suddenly, there was a vertical crack in the depths of the abyss. It looked like a huge hole. Yi Qinghan's eyes were sharp and his hands were fast. He grabbed the hole directly. His fingers were almost torn off. Boom! Yi Qinghan supported himself with his legs on both sides of the abyss. His left hand held his blade and stabbed it into the mountain opposite him. He exerted his body and rolled into the vertical crack. Once he entered the crack, he realized that there was another world here. It stretched on endlessly and there seemed to be traces of human polishing. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan took out the immemorial yin-yang jade to illuminate the dark cave. He realized that it was blood red inside. Moreover, this was not a natural red. Yi Qinghan squatted down and rubbed the rock with his hand. He realized that the red rock actually had energy fluctuations. Moreover, it was very familiar. He put his finger on the tip of his tongue and licked it. He realized that the red material was actually blood. Gulp! Yi Qinghan's pupils constricted. He looked into the depths cautiously. There were people alive here. They must be peerless ancient experts, just like Su Jiuling, who was suppressed by the human Tao Emperor's pagoda. Blood dyed the internal crack red. Those who were not in the fourth form of the ancient era would not have such a majestic amount of qi and blood. Whoosh! The human Tao Emperor's pagoda appeared on Yi Qinghan's forehead. He held the 9-chain gourd in his hand and walked deeper into the crack. After walking for a long time, the crack seemed to be endless. He had no idea why there was such a passage in the interior of the star. Several days later, the crack in the star suddenly became much bigger. A cave about 100 meters tall appeared. There was no light inside, but Yi Qinghan could feel that there was a terrifying person hiding inside. Whether dead or alive, he must have been a hero during the ancient era. He might even be the corpse of a primordial immortal emperor. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Thump thump thump. Yi Qinghan's heart was pounding. He activated the immemorial yin-yang jade with his immortal spiritual force. The interior of the jade shone brightly and a palace-like place appeared. Several corpses were lying on the stone floor. One of them was sitting cross-legged on the main seat. He was holding something in his hand. The pressure was terrifying. Chapter 26:51. Dong dong dong. Yi Qinghan's heart was about to explode. The danger here was no less than the Crying Ghost Ridge or the Demon Ceiling Cave. Some immemorial runes were engraved on the walls of this underground palace. Corpses were scattered all over the place. All of them were from the immemorial era. Their corpses were preserved until now without any signs of decay. One could see how terrifying their cultivation was. Huff huff huff, Yi Qinghan panted heavily. He walked closer and saw that the corpse sitting in the center had a sword in its chest. It was the Taigu Emperor's sword. The token on his waist flashed with Emperor's might. His eyes were filled with unwillingness and killing intent. This gaze could kill an ordinary third-degree realm expert. Those with weaker mental states would either die or go crazy. This gaze was too fierce. Immemorial, immortal Emperor's corpse. Yi Qinghan clenched his fists and took a few steps back. He didn't understand the history of the immemorial era. Even if he saw the token, he didn't know which supreme existence this immemorial immortal Emperor's corpse belonged to. After a long time, Yi Qinghan readjusted his mental state and suppressed his fear. He slowly walked towards the immemorial immortal Emperor's corpse and carefully observed the Emperor's sword. After searching for a long time, he realized that there were words engraved on the back of the sword. He took the immemorial yin-yang jade and took a closer look. The word Liang was written on it. Chu Shiliang's immortal sword? Yi Qinghan's pupils shrank. He muttered to himself in astonishment, "It can't be so coincidental, right? This is immemorial immortal Emperor Chu Shiliang's Emperor's sword?" Yi Qinghan didn't dare to be sure. He squatted down and looked at the items in the corpse's hands, one in each hand. At this moment, the treasures were dim, as if the blood had congealed. Before the immemorial immortal Emperor died, he opened his hands slightly. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to see what was in his hands. Yi Qinghan was a little unsure. These things seemed to be human eyeballs, but the blood had congealed for too long. It was impossible to determine whose eyeballs this pair of eyeballs belonged to. However, if this Emperor's sword belonged to immortal Emperor Chu Shiliang, then this pair of eyeballs might belong to Ancestor Yen. Just as Yi Qinghan was focusing all his attention on the ancient corpse, a pair of eyes appeared from the darkness and stared at Yi Qinghan. The eyes were clear and cold, and the aura was restrained. Even Yi Qinghan did not notice that there was someone behind him. A ferocious glint flashed in his eyes as he slowly drew his sword. Just as he was about to slash at Yi Qinghan felt a wisp of sword light appear behind him. He immediately drew his saber and slashed backward without even thinking. His murderous aura filled the cave, causing it to rumble incessantly. "Who is it?" Yi Qinghan shouted angrily. He thought it was the boss, but the sword in the man's hand emitted a familiar aura. It was not the weapon used by the boss. Boom! The sharp sword collided with craziness, and the aura of the Yen clan entered Yi Qinghan's body. The 5 supreme divine swords of the Yen clan, Heaven's Sword, Earth Sword, Emperor Sword, Human Sword, and Reincarnation Sword. The Heaven's Sword was in Yi Qinghan's hand, and Reincarnation Shakyamuni had one. This human sword was actually in the hands of this person. 1. The human Tao Emperor Pagoda was awakened by the aura of the human sword, and once again appeared on its own. The light illuminated the entire place, and that person's face could be clearly seen. He looked to be about 27 or 28 years old, and his attire was actually from the immemorial era. His cultivation had actually reached the 3rd realm, and the sword in his hand was indeed the human sword of the Yen clan. Yen clan member. The 4th person was from the Yen clan, and a very pure expert from the Yen clan. The first was naturally Reincarnation Shakyamuni, the second was Yi Qinghan, the third was Huo Lingtian, and the 4th was the person in front of them. Yen clan member. Yi Qinghan was shocked. He did not expect to see someone from the immemorial era who was still alive. Moreover, he was so young. That person clearly did not expect to meet someone from the Yen clan here. When he saw the human Tao Emperor Pagoda, he immediately hugged his sword with both hands, knelt on one knee and said respectfully, "Yen clan's imparting elder successor Yi Qingxing greets the young master." The imparting elder was in charge of the human sword, and the Emperor's sword was in the hands of the Yen Emperor. In the last battle, even the Emperor's sword was lost. Even if one knew that it was in the Crying Ghost Ridge, it would not be easy to find it. Yi Qinghan's eyelids twitched. He did not expect this scene, but he quickly reacted. He immediately helped Yi Qingxing up and asked in a low voice, "Is there anyone else from the Yen clan who is still alive?" Yi Qingxing shook his head, his eyes filled with anger. He stared at the primordial immortal emperor's corpse and said angrily, "The remaining elders of the Yen clan brought me to hide in the Death Star. They just wanted to prolong their lives and leave behind their inheritance. Who would have thought that the primordial demon emperor would come here? Even though he was severely injured, he killed the elders with a wave of his hand. He wanted to kill me as well, but I don't know why he sealed me. I died not long after I was sealed. By chance, I woke up 100,000 years ago and cultivated bitterly to reach my current level. I didn't dare to leave without permission all these years. At most, I would go to the Void Ridge to search for resources and then come back. I didn't expect young master to come here." Yi Qinghan took a deep breath. Since there were elders who brought the Yen clan to hide in the Death Star, there might be others who were still alive. Perhaps they were living in the Death Star, enduring the boredom and death, but they were still alive. Da-da-da. At this moment, a few crisp sounds came from the crack. There was a large amount of spiritual qi hidden in this space. It should have been brought here by Yi Qingxing. Sounds could be transmitted. Yi Qinghan's eyes flashed. He immediately pointed at the corpses lying on the ground and said, "Put on the shroud immediately. It can block the Yen clan's qi and blood from leaking out." Yi Qingxing was already in the 3rd realm and was the successor of the imparting elder. His cultivation was not weak. He heard the sound before Yi Qinghan heard it. He immediately knelt on the ground and kowtowed to one of the corpses. "Elder Lin, I didn't mean to desecrate your body, but I have no choice now. Please forgive me." After speaking, Yi Qingxing immediately took off the bloody clothes on the corpse and put them on. The aura on his body was quickly suppressed. After a while, a slender figure appeared in the ancient inner palace. Her eyes were more dazzling than the stars. The psychic pearl in her hand lit up the space. "I thought you were dead. I didn't expect there to be another world here." The owner snorted. Yi Qinghan's mouth twitched. He did not refute. He pointed at the sword on the primordial immortal emperor's corpse and asked, "Is this Chu Shiryang's emperor's sword?" The qi and blood of these corpses had dried up. It was impossible to tell their identities. Only the primordial immortal emperor's body still had emperor aura. His eyes were especially terrifying. Only then did the owner notice that there were a few corpses in the underground palace. There was also another living person. His eyes narrowed. He stared at Yi Qinxing and said, "He's from the Yen clan." Buzz! Yi Qinxing held the human sword. His eyes flashed with killing intent. He was in the third realm, but that was only in the third realm of the primordial immortal realm. It was completely different from the current third realm. Yi Qinghan pressed down on Yi Qinxing's wrist. He shook his head and said, "It's okay. I trust her. She knows my identity. If she wanted to betray me, she would have done so long ago." The owner was shocked by Yi Qinxing's killing intent. His eyes were filled with vigilance. He realized that Yi Qinxing's third realm was not the same as his current third realm. This person's cultivation method and cultivation method were the same as the primordial immortal realm. This meant that Yi Qinxing was not related to the current immortal realm. Chapter 2652. Yi Qinxing was someone who did not belong to this era. Although he was very young, he belonged to the immemorial era. The owner looked down on Yi Qinxing a second ago, but in the next moment, she became much more vigilant. Yi Qinghan stood between the two of them. He didn't want them to fight, so he changed the topic. "Stop fighting amongst yourselves. Let's take a look at the origins of this primordial immortal emperor's corpse and this sword." The district mistress deeply breathed in and maintained a certain distance from Yi Qinghan and Yi Qinxing because she felt quite fearful. If it was just Yi Qinghan by himself, it would be fine, but now that there was the Yen clan's legatee, the two of them working together would definitely be able to kill her. Yi Qinghan shook his head and took the initiative to step back, allowing the owner to go to the corpse herself. The owner slowly came to the corpse and squatted down. She carefully observed the sword on the corpse and stared at the word, Liang, on the back of the sword. Then, she looked at the material and the faint pressure. She confirmed the identity of the Emperor's sword. That's right. It is Chu Shiryang's Life Emperor's sword, Liang Emperor's sword. The owner did not turn around. After confirming the identity of the Liang Emperor's sword, she looked at the corpse's waist token. However, she did not dare to flip the corpse. Even if the immemorial immortal emperor was dead, no one could profane him. Perhaps even if immortal Emperor Qing Zun and the other 4 immortal emperors appeared, they might not dare to flip the corpse. The emperor's aura was vast and mighty. Even though the emperor's blood had dried up, there was still an aura that did not belong to the immemorial ancient immortals or immemorial ancient gods. It was a demonic aura that belonged to the demon emperor. There was only one demon emperor among the 12 immemorial immortal emperors. This corpse is the Heaven Spirit Demon Emperor, one of the 12 immemorial immortal emperors. If I'm not wrong, the eyes in his hand should belong to the Yen ancestor. When he and the other immemorial immortal emperors worked together to kill the Yen ancestor, they dug out the Yen ancestor's eyes. However, when the Heaven Spirit Demon Emperor dug out the Yen ancestor's eyes, Immortal Emperor Chu Shiryang pierced his heart with a sword. The Heaven Spirit Demon Emperor escaped here before he died. The district master's expression was solemn and his eyes shone brightly as he deduced. Although Yi Qinxing was from the primordial era, he knew very little about the primordial era. He was only in his teens at the end of the primordial war. In addition, he had been sealed for many years, so his actual age was not very high. Therefore, he did not refute the owner's speculation. Yi Qinghan clenched his fists and stared at the eye in the demon Thearka's hand and the immemorial Liang Emperor's sword on his chest. He had to obtain both of these items. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan stepped forward and was about to draw his sword when he was stopped by the owner. "Are you crazy? You even dared to touch the corpse of a supreme ancient immortal emperor? Aren't you afraid of retribution? The owner asked angrily. Boom! Yi Qinghan stretched out his right hand, and the might of the flame ancestor was activated, releasing a faint light. He then replied in a low voice, The one who pulled out the sword is not me, but the flame ancestor. The flame ancestor can even kill emperors. Why can't he touch the corpse? I advise you not to touch it or you will regret it. The supreme ancient immortal emperor will definitely lay down his corpse before his death. Anyone who blasphemes against him will suffer the most terrifying attack. You and I cannot resist it. Even immortal Emperor Qing Zun and the immortal Dragon Emperor cannot resist it. The district master was still firm in his will, blocking Yi Qinghan, not willing to let him take the risk. Young master, it's better not to touch the corpse. It's too dangerous. You have not seen how terrifying the supreme ancient immortal emperor is. A few elders of my Yen clan couldn't resist him even when he was on the verge of death. With a wave of his hand, a strand of his will was enough to destroy this star. Yi Qinxing reminded respectfully. As for the elders of the Yen clan, even if they were ordinary elders, they would at least be at the 3rd level, which was equivalent to the current 4th level. But in front of the heavily injured supreme ancient immortal emperor, they were nothing more than ants. Even if such a person died, he would still be the heavens, nobody would dare to profane him. However, people like Yi Qinghan did not believe in heresy. If they were dead, they were dead. What dignity was there to talk about? All of you, leave this cave and prepare to return to the Void Ridge. I have a way to take the Liang Emperor's sword and the Flame Ancestor's eyes, Yi Qinghan said firmly. You are crazy. If you want to die, can't you wait until the noble battle is over? The district master was flustered and exasperated. He wanted to stop Yi Qinghan from going to his death. Yi Qinghan wanted to take the risk, so he naturally had the ability to do so. His gaze was firm. He did not give Yi Qinxing and the district master a chance to refute. He said coldly, Leave the cave and head towards the Void Ridge. I have the ability to survive. Yi Qinxing did not dare to disobey the young master of the Yen clan. He could only bow and carry the corpses of the elders of the Yen clan out of the underground palace along another path. The district master was also helpless at this moment. He quickly left the underground palace. There was only Yi Qinghan and the corpse in the cave. It was so quiet that it made one's hair stand on end. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan took out the human Tao Emperor Pagoda. He restrained his might and hovered in the air. The Liang Emperor's sword seemed to have been activated. It shook slightly and the corpse shone brightly. The force sent Yi Qinghan flying dozens of meters and crashing into the mountain. Bang! Puff! Yi Qinghan involuntarily spat out a mouthful of essence blood. He looked at the corpse in shock. He had to admit that the glory and achievements of the immemorial era were completely different from this era. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan put his palms together and knelt in front of the corpse. He said respectfully, Lord Supreme Liang Emperor Sword, I am Yi Qinghan, the inheritor of the Yen clan. Right now, the line of Master Chu and the Yen clan are struggling. I have already found the inheritor of Master Chu's line. However, Master Chu's line does not have the Emperor Sword. They cannot stand shoulder to shoulder with the heroes in this golden era. Please allow me to bring you out of seclusion and protect me as I take the Flame Ancestor's eyes away. Buzz! Whoosh! At this moment, the eyes in the Heaven Spirit Demon Emperor's hand seemed to have gained intelligence. The congealed blood dispersed and emitted a sacred light that could steal one's soul. It seemed to be able to see through all illusions. All cultivation techniques became clear in front of it. With it, one would be able to comprehend the laws of the human Tao at a rapid pace. This was why Yi Qinghan was so determined to obtain the Flame Ancestor's eyes. The Heaven Spirit Demon Emperor's corpse was only activated by the aura, but it was not in an attacking state. Unless someone touched its corpse, the corpse would not take the initiative to attack. Yi Qinghan grabbed the human Tao Emperor Pagoda with one hand and probed with his right hand. He wanted to grab the eyes in the corpse's hand. However, to grab the eyes with one hand in an instant, one not only needed speed, but also a calm heart. The Liang Emperor's sword did not move at all. It was as if it had a soul and eyes, watching Yi Qinghan. It was waiting for Yi Qinghan to make the first move before it could fly out of the corpse's body. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Whoosh. After Yi Qinghan probed a few times, his right hand activated the flame ancestor's arm. He pried open the corpse's fingers and took the eyes like a dragonfly skimming the surface of the water. Whoosh! Boom! In a split second, a ray of energy shot out from the depths of the underground palace. The star exploded from the inside and shattered into pieces. The light directly drowned the human Tao Emperor Pagoda. Hum! The Liang Emperor sword was pulled out in an instant and blocked in front of Yi Qinghan, giving him the last chance to escape. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan entered the human Tao Emperor Pagoda in the blink of an eye and was swept out of the endless energy by the pagoda. Boom! Whoosh! The dead star completely shattered. The aftermath chased after Yi Qinghan and the owner. As long as this energy caught up with them, the two would die without a doubt. Whoosh! The two madly rushed in the direction of the Void Ridge. They were as fast as lightning. Boom! Whoosh! The aftermath of the energy hit a dead star in the depths of the galaxy. The dead star was split open in an instant. This energy was indestructible. It represented the explosion of a primordial immortal emperor before his death. Anyone inside would be severely injured. Even a primordial immortal emperor would be injured. Hum! Hum! The Liang Emperor sword and the human Tao Emperor Pagoda worked together to resist the aftermath of the energy. The impact caused the void to distort and collapse continuously. Flames and air blasts spread for thousands of miles. Across the endless void, the explosion of the dead star could be seen from the Void Ridge. Many people in the fourth state did not dare to move. Chapter 2653. Boom! The dead star exploded, and the air rushed to the Milky Way, drowning countless miles. The air waves even rushed to the Void Ridge. Whoosh! Everyone clearly felt a gust of air blow over, causing their celestial robes to flutter. Hum! The Emperor's sword was in the sky, shining brightly. A ray of light shot out from the flames and hung above the Milky Way. It was more dazzling than the stars. Other than the Mu Wu Divine Book, the Great Sun Emperor sword was another primordial immortal emperor weapon. The owner and Yi Qingxing were sent flying by the aftershocks. They turned to look at the dead star, their eyes filled with reluctance and despair. Even if the 5 celestial nation monarchs were here, they would probably be killed by such an energy blast. How could Yi Qinghan escape? Young master, Yi Qingxing held the Yen ancestor's sword tightly. The sword whistled in the sky, full of anger. The murderous intent in his eyes was so thick that it was tangible. He stepped on the air, twisting the sky. But no one saw a shadow moving slowly in the flames. It was the human Tao Emperor Pagoda. It did not shine brightly like the Liang Emperor sword. Instead, it quietly left the center of the aftershocks and came to the periphery. Yi Qinghan hid in the 5th level of the pagoda, his heart still beating fast. He held the Yen ancestor's eyes in his hand. The feeling of fusion was unprecedented. It was a connection from the bloodline, a recognition from the bloodline. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan controlled the human Tao Emperor Pagoda and rushed to the periphery of the aftershock. His figure flashed, and he killed his way out of the energy blast. He raised his hand, and the Liang Emperor's sword automatically rushed into his hand. Hum! The sword pointed to the sky, connecting the sky above and the 9 underworlds below. Yi Qinghan's body was connected. Billions of stars shone brightly, and the power of the stars flowed into his body. His originally empty body became full again after an hour. Divine light sparkled all over his body. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan flew toward the void ridge on his sword. A moment later, he appeared in front of Yi Qingxing and the owner. The owner and Yi Qingxing looked at Yi Qinghan in shock. It was as if they had seen a ghost. How did you escape?" the owner asked in shock. Yi Qingxing was so excited that he didn't know what to say. Yi Qinghan did not answer the owner immediately. He looked at Yi Qingxing, stretched out his hand and said, "Give me the body of the elder of the Yin clan." Yi Qingxing did not hesitate. He immediately lifted the corpses into the air respectfully. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan waved his hand, and with a flash of light, the corpses disappeared. In the blink of an eye, a shroud appeared in his hand, and he put it on. This marquis already said that if you don't have the ability, why would you send yourself to your death? Yi Qinghan replied methodically. The owner's eyelids twitched as he asked, "Where's the heavenly spirit emperor corpse?" Yi Qinghan shrugged and said indifferently, "Then I don't know. I left as soon as I obtained the flame ancestor's eyes. I don't know what happened after that." "Congratulations, young master, for obtaining my ancestor's eye." Yi Qingxing was wild with joy and bowed to congratulate him. Yi Qinghan smiled and patted Yi Qingxing's shoulder. He said, "You don't have to be so polite with me. There's no need for young master or young master. We're all from the Yin clan." "I wouldn't dare. You are the inheritor of the great ancestor, and I am the inheritor of the elder. There's an order of seniority, and I wouldn't dare to overstep my boundaries," Yi Qingxing replied firmly. During the primordial age there was a strict hierarchy. Bloodlines had the power to suppress everything. Basically, no one dared to offend their superiors. Yi Qinghan shook his head and said no more. He said indifferently, "When I return to the Jiangnan Immortal Valley, I will refine these eyes. The 6th level of the Law of the People Dao will be completed." Whoosh! With that, Yi Qinghan did not give the owner a chance to ask any more questions. His figure flashed as he rushed toward the Void Ridge. In the Jiangnan Immortal Valley, the 3 siblings had already come out of seclusion. The Liang Emperor's sword had appeared, and the call from the bloodline woke them up. Their eyes were full of excitement. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh! In the void, the 3 figures chased after each other. One was faster than the other. The owner and Yi Qingxing were running neck and neck, steadily suppressing Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan was talented, but his realm was still weaker. If he wanted to surpass the 2 of them, he had to reach the 6th level of the Law of the People Dao and advance to the 3rd level. A few months later, the 3 of them appeared in the Jiangnan Immortal Valley. No one from the Crazy Manor had come out of seclusion yet. They were racing against time. They would not come out of seclusion until they reached the 2nd level. Even if some of them had reached the 2nd level, they were desperately trying to consolidate their cultivation. Their resources were almost exhausted. Yi Qinghan held the Liang Emperor's sword in his hand and bowed slightly. He offered the Liang Emperor's sword with both hands and said in a low voice, "I have not let you down. The Liang Emperor's sword is here. Brother Junxian, please accept it." Chu Shijun was excited. He knelt on one knee and raised his hands to welcome the sword. He said respectfully, "The inheritor of the Chu clan, Chu Shijun, greets the Lord Liang Emperor's sword." "Welcome back, Lord Liang Emperor's sword." The Liang Emperor's sword pointed to the sky with a monstrous aura. It appeared in Chu Shijun's hand. Although there was no scabbard, it was even more terrifying. It was like a primordial immortal emperor had appeared in the human world. Boom! The 3 siblings all knelt down. The appearance of the Liang Emperor's sword was equivalent to Chu Shiliang's personal arrival. How could they dare to blaspheme it? Whoosh! The Liang Emperor's sword didn't make a sound. It directly lifted Chu Shijun and his siblings up. Then, it retracted and automatically entered Chu Shijun's body. It turned into a seal on her forehead. It wouldn't awaken until the most crucial moment. Otherwise, it would delay Chu Shijun's cultivation. Chu Shijun looked at Yi Qinghan with gratitude in his eyes. He bowed and said, "Thank you, Brother Yi, for finding the Liang Emperor sword. Junxian owes you a big favor." Yi Qinghan smiled and bowed. "My Yen clan owes your Chu clan an even bigger favor. Brother, why are you being so polite with me?" Thump, thump, thump. Chu Shijun nodded repeatedly. He patted his chest and said, "Then I won't say anything more. In the future, your business is my business. However, after obtaining the Liang Emperor sword, I will go into seclusion to cultivate again. I may not come out for 1,000 years." Yi Qinghan nodded and replied, "I will also go into seclusion for 1,000 years. I will leave the Jiangnan Immortal Valley to Yi Qinxing and the owner for the time being." Yi Qinxing naturally would not refute Yi Qinghan's words. The owner wanted Yi Qinghan to grow stronger as soon as possible so that he could become an emperor. He could wait for 1,000 years. Yi Qinghan returned to the Jiangnan Immortal Valley and found an empty ancient palace. He took out the Yen ancestors' eyes and directly formed a seal to refine them. At this moment, Yi Mingxi and Jian Qinxue joined forces to kill their way from the periphery of the Void Ridge. Along the way, Yi Mingxi's murderous aura shocked Jian Qinxue. She had just entered the first stage, but she could actually kill a second stage and was even comparable to a third stage. Once the merciless Dao seal was unleashed, heaven and earth roared. However, the 5 of them kept a low profile. Yan Yunbei was in charge of exploring the path ahead and specifically looking for safe routes to avoid places with large forces. They followed the clues left behind by the crazed manor. However, some of the marks had been washed away. They were now unable to find the real location of Yi Qinghan and the others. In the end, they were trapped in the center of the battlefield and could be attacked by large forces at any time. On this day, the crazed manor encountered a medium-sized force. The other party had 6 third-stage cultivators with different attire. It should be a cooperation between several forces, hoping to survive in this chaotic world. When they saw Yi Mingxi and the others, murderous aura shot out from their eyes. Killing people for treasures and fighting for resources was a common occurrence. If they did not do this, they would be eliminated sooner or later. The heroes unsheathed their swords and their auras were like rainbows. "Take out the crazed manor flag," Jian Qinxue immediately said. Whoosh! Yan Yunbei waved his hand and took out the crazed manor flag. It fluttered in the wind. The crazed manor flag was a symbol of faith, but it could also intimidate some small and medium-sized forces. Chapter 2654. The battle flag of the Kuang Manor fluttered in the wind. Arrogant manor. The expert from the mid-tier faction was taken aback. Who in the Kuang Manor didn't know about this? The revered Dragon Marquis had killed over 30,000 soldiers of the Kuang Manor, but in the end, he was captured alive by Yi Qinghan. If they dared to kill a direct descendant of the Kuang Manor, they would only do so if they wanted to exterminate their entire family. So it's fellow Taoist Kuangfu. It's a misunderstanding. The old man in the lead, who had almost stepped into the 4th state, hurriedly bowed and said, "This old man is the Yu clan's clan leader, Yu Qingfeng. Greetings, fellow Taoists from Kuangfu." Jian Qinxue was the mother of the world. His cultivation was not strong, but he was awe-inspiring. Kuang Manor's Jian Qinxue, heaven-suppressing Marquis Yi Qinghan's wife, greets Patriarch Yu. Jian Qinxue bowed slightly. "So it's the Marquis, madam. This old man greets you. Are you looking for a place to set up camp for the Kuang Manor?" Yu Qingfeng's eyes flashed as he looked at the 3rd-degree realm experts beside him, as if they were discussing something. Those few 3rd-stage realm experts all nodded their heads as their eyes were filled with anticipation. Jian Qinxue and the others were not 3-year-old children. Of course, they would not completely believe these people. Hence, they asked, Does Yu Clan Master have any news about the Kwang Manor? The Yu Clan head immediately bowed. Madam, the Kwang Manor is stationed in Jiangnan, forming an alliance with the Qing Zun Immortal Empire. However, that place is heavily guarded and no one is allowed to enter. This old man has a presumptuous request. I wonder if I should say it? Jian Qinshui frowned and looked at Yu Qingfeng. He cupped his fists and said, Family head Yu, please tell us. We will help if we can. If we can't help, there's nothing we can do. Whoosh. Those 6 third-stage realm cultivators all bowed and said, We wish to pledge our loyalty to the Kwang Manor. We seek Madam's approval. Jian Qinshui was stunned. He didn't expect this group of people to pledge their loyalty to the Kwang Manor. This was good news. Why didn't they head straight to the Kwang Manor? Why were they loitering here? You want to pledge your loyalty to Kwang Manor, and you know where they are. Why don't you just go and join them? Yan Yunbei asked without hesitation. Yu Qingfeng immediately cupped his fists and said, Fellow Taoist of the Crazy Manor, you might not know this, but several major forces have joined forces to block the main roads leading to the Jiangnan Immortal Valley in order to prevent others from joining the Crazy Manor. We wouldn't dare to offend a major force. How can I trust you? Jian Qinshui asked seriously. Yu Qingfeng immediately replied, Everyone knows about this. If you don't believe me, you can ask around. Actually, there are quite a few nobles who want to join the Crazed Manor. It's just that they don't have the means to do so. We're lucky to have met you. Perhaps those major forces wouldn't dare to go against the Crazed Manor? Which forces are blocking the road? Jian Qinshui asked. Madam, there are people from the Paragon Immortal Empire. The successor of the Great Sun Immortal Emperor, the Grand Elder of the Dragon Emperor Immortal Empire, Long Shao. There is also another primordial Immortal Empire force that has never shown themselves, but is loyal to the successor of the primordial Tao Master God. Yu Qingfeng immediately replied. Jian Qinshui pondered for a moment and immediately made up his mind. We'll take the path of the ancient factions. We have no enmity with them, so I'm sure they won't fight to the death with Kwang Manor. Yan Yunbei frowned and thought about it. They had been separated from the Void Ridge for more than 1,000 years. It was hard to guarantee that Kwang Manor had no enmity with the successor of the primordial Tao Master God. However, he had no intention of refuting Jian Qinshui. Give me the route to the Jiangnan Immortal Valley. You family head, you'll be in charge of protecting Madam there. I'll secretly go to Kwang Manor first. I'll pick a day to bring Kwang Manor's army to support you. When you meet up with Kwang Manor, I guarantee that you'll have the same status as the brothers of Kwang Manor. Yu Qingfeng and the others were overjoyed. Kwang Manor valued relationship. It didn't matter who Kwang Manor protected. At least they wouldn't be like slaves if they followed Kwang Manor. This was what many nobles hoped for. I guarantee that we'll complete the mission. As long as we don't die, Madam won't be harmed. Yu Qingfeng immediately promised. Hua. Yan Yunbei stood up straight and pressed the short blade in his right hand against his chest. The ancient massacre god's military salute was magnificent. Even though he was saluting alone, it was still domineering. Yan Yunbei looked at Yi Chentian, Medusa, Yi Mingxi, and the others. He signaled them with his eyes and then left the team. In a flash, he hid in the valley. Yu Qingfeng and the others seemed to really want to protect Jian Qinshui and the others to the Jiangnan Immortal Valley. About 30 people surrounded the 4 from Kwang Manor. Each of them pulled out their swords and rode on their immortal horses and ferocious beasts. Unless they encountered a big force, they weren't afraid of anyone else. There were corpses everywhere. Fallen nobles were wrapped in horse leather. There wasn't even a place to bury them. Desolation, loneliness, and deathly stillness were everywhere. More than 30 people rushed into the depths of Kwang Manor. The battle flag of Kwang Manor fluttered in the sky. Ordinary forces didn't want to provoke a force that sought revenge for the smallest grievance, so they didn't stop these people. Mount Xingliang was an endless mountain range. The peaks pierced through the clouds and poisonous creatures ran rampant. There was only one path across the mountain range. However, this place was occupied by the immemorial divine generals. They were loyal to the inheritor of the immemorial divine path. The inheritor of the immemorial divine path, Tao Sovereign, had already appeared. His cultivation was monstrous, and he was currently in seclusion to comprehend the fourth form. He would come out of seclusion once every 100 years to fight in all directions. They didn't care about Quang Manor. They were just occupying this place as a resting place. They weren't blocking off Quang Manor alone. However, it was impossible for anyone to pass through this place. Tap, 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 boom, boom, boom. Yu Qingfeng and the others protected Jian Qinxue and the others as they traveled for 100,000 miles. They spent a few months and encountered several big forces. Gu Jiutian and the ancient heavenly emperor had both encountered them. However, the two of them gave face to Quang Manor and didn't make things difficult for this army. Instead, they gave them some resources as supplies. Quang Manor naturally had some face. Now that Gu Jiutian had stepped into the second stage and had devoured countless resources, he was almost at the third stage. Once he entered the third stage, his divine will Lord God Spark would automatically seek an owner. By then, it would be time for Gu Jiutian to soar into the sky. As more and more experts appeared, many young Supremes were looking for opportunities to kill the older generation expert. They didn't care about morality or rules. As long as they could kill, they would use any method. Therefore, the ancient heavenly emperor and other older Supremes kept a low profile. They didn't fight if they could. Jian Qinshue's army approached Xingliang Mountain. They raised their battle flags high and stopped 1,000 meters away from the entrance of the mountain range. Quang Manor would like to pass through. I hope that the lord of your territory will be magnanimous and open the barrier to let us pass. Jian Qinshue rode on an immortal horse. He looked up at the guards on Xingliang Mountain and said in a deep voice, "Scram! Quang Manor? What Quang Manor? This is the territory of the immemorial Master God's inheritor. Even the Emperor's inheritor has to give way. Quang Manor is nothing." A domineering voice reverberated through the mountain. It was extremely ear-piercing. The immemorial Master God's inheritor didn't know much about Quang Manor and Yi Qinhan. Therefore, he rejected Jian Qinshue's request without hesitation. Jian Qinshue didn't act rashly. He stopped Yi Mingxi's restless hand and said in a low voice, "This is not the time to break through. Wait until Brother Yen finds help." Yu Qingfeng looked respectful and didn't dare to say anything. He could only rely on Jian Qinshue to give orders. Jian Qinshue waved his hand and signaled for them to retreat. He chose a place near the mountain to set up camp. He didn't want to offend the immemorial Master God's inheritor. At this time, Yen Yunbei had already taken a detour. He broke through the defense and arrived at the Jiangnan Immortal Valley. However, he was covered in injuries. Some of the poisonous gas had already invaded his flesh. His face was pale and he was on the verge of death. Chapter 2655. Yen Yunbei was covered in injuries. In order to open a path, he took a dead end. It was already a miracle that he was able to make it to Jiangnan Immortal Valley alive. Yi Qinxing did not recognize Yen Yunbei, but Yen Yunbei's crazy manor uniform was very obvious. He immediately flew over to greet Yen Yunbei. At this moment, Yen Yunbei almost fainted. Before he lost consciousness, he said, "Lucky Mountain, receive." Yi Qinxing didn't know what that meant, but the owner wasn't in seclusion. She noticed Yen Yunbei the moment he appeared. Her figure flashed and appeared at the entrance of Jiangnan Immortal Valley. Xingliang Mountain? The owner frowned and thought for a while, then said coldly, "This is a saint pill for curing poison. Give it to Yen Yunbei. I'll go receive the people from Crazed Manor. If they don't return in a year, Immediately inform Yi Qinghan to come out. The owner couldn't not know that Xingliang Mountain was occupied by Dao Sovereign. However, she didn't have much confidence in winning against Dao Sovereign. Even if they fought, both sides would suffer. Therefore, she set a 1-year deadline. If they reconciled, they could return in a dozen days. If they fought, there might be a result in a year. If they didn't return in a year, it meant that they might have lost. Whoosh! The owner flew through the sky and crossed hundreds of miles in a blink of an eye. At this time, Zhong Jingfu received news that the wife of heaven-suppressing Marquis was blocked outside Xingliang Mountain by Dao Sovereign's people. He immediately ordered a 4th form expert to lead more than 10 experts to attack Xingliang Mountain. He wanted to kill the people from Crazed Manor to avenge that day. However, the distance between the two sides was quite big. The owner was almost at Xingliang Mountain, but they had just left. A few days later, the owner appeared in the west of Xingliang Mountain. She stepped on the path and entered Xingliang Mountain. Qing Zun Immortal Country Xian Yuan Square is here to visit Dao Sovereign. Please come out. The owner bowed. The two sides of the mountain were occupied by the immemorial divine generals. Hundreds of them looked down from above. The leading expert replied coldly, "My master is in seclusion. He won't see anyone. Leave quickly." The owner shook her head. It was indeed easy to meet the king of hell, but difficult to deal with the little ghosts. Therefore, she relied on her strength to force her way into Xingliang Mountain. Whoosh! Whoosh whoosh whoosh! Divine light filled the sky as the divine weapons shot out in all directions, surrounding the owner in an instant. Whoosh! A barrier surrounded the owner of the district. Those divine weapons and crossbow bolts could not break through her defense at all. They forced their way through until they reached the first layer of the barrier. Boom boom boom! The district mistress formed a seal with her palms. Time and space reversed. With a light clap of her jade-like hands, mountains and rivers collapsed. Even Mount Xingliang was trembling. Crack crack crack! The first barrier was directly shattered, unable to block it at all. Dao Sovereign, I've personally come here. Is it so difficult to see you? The district mistress scolded coldly. Her voice reverberated throughout the entire Xingliang Mountain. Whoosh! An oppressive aura shot up into the sky as a gigantic hand that covered the sky broke through the mountains and rivers. It pressed down from above, intending to suppress the owner of the district. Boom! The district master's palms flipped the heavens, shattering the void. They collided powerfully, causing the great Dao to collapse. The two of them were actually evenly matched. The other party was almost at the level of a divine general. This person had already obtained the inheritance of a divine general. His cultivation was heaven-defying, and he was definitely not any weaker than the owner. Thud thud thud! The district mistress took a few steps back. She looked at the other party with a solemn expression as he somersaulted more than 10 times in the air. After dispersing all the force, he landed steadily on a mountain. Fellow Taoist, is it appropriate to barge into my master's place of seclusion? The middle-aged man's majestic aura radiated in all directions. Like immortal Emperor Qing Zun, he gave off an aura that made people not dare to raise their head. His words were full of charm and dharma and logos. I want to borrow your path and negotiate nicely. Unfortunately, this brat is difficult to deal with, so I have no choice but to barge in. I wonder if you, fellow Taoist, are willing to give me face? The district mistress asked in a deep voice. Although the divine general was not a primordial divine general, his combat strength was definitely not inferior to the district mistress. At this moment, he said coldly, face is earned through strength. But I'm sorry, your face is not useful in front of me. The galaxy reversal that you cultivate is the #1 divine ability below the immortal emperor realm. However, it does not include primordial divine generals. Even if you cultivate the galaxy reversal to the highest level, Your combat strength is only comparable to a primordial divine general. Why should I give you face? If you retreat now, I will pretend that nothing happened. Otherwise, don't even think about leaving today." The district mistress' expression sank. She clenched her fists and took a deep breath. Her fingertips spun, controlling the myriad of laws. Even though she was very angry, she restrained herself. She reminded in a low voice, "We are just borrowing your path. Do you want to make enemies so much? Your Tao over God's inheritance is not to be trifled with. Our Qing Zun Immortal Empire and Kuang Manor are also not that easy to deal with. If you give up a path, there will be many more in the future. Why must you cut off the path of retreat?" The divine general sneered in disdain. "Since I don't even put the Qing Zun Immortal Empire in my eyes, what is a small Kuang Manor? A nouveau riche who came out of nowhere, didn't he rely on the power of the Qing Zun Immortal Emperor? Other than that, what else does he have to be proud of?" The district mistress spat out a mouthful of turbid air. Looking at the divine general's resolute attitude, she knew that it was unrealistic to barge in. This person had been in seclusion for so long, he must have understood the inheritance thoroughly. Moreover, he had obtained the godhead of a primordial divine general, which was equivalent to having 70 to 80% of the primordial divine general's strength. "Seems like we can only take a detour," the district mistress muttered to herself. She didn't want to stay here for too long, mainly because she was afraid that Jian Qinxue and the others would encounter misfortune in the valley on the other side. "It's a small world. Remember what you have done today," the district mistress said coldly and turned around to take a detour, speeding along the path of despair. These paths of despair were not easy to traverse. There were dangers everywhere, and poisonous creatures ran rampant. Some of the swamps even had powerful primordial poisonous creatures that could kill people without leaving a trace. In order to reach the other side of Xingliang Mountain as soon as possible, the district mistress could only force her way through. However, she was a top-notch expert in her fourth form after all. Along the way, she was scared but not in danger. Finally, she reached the other side after a month. Just as she arrived at the opposite side of Xingliang Mountain and met up with Jian Qinxue, one of Zhong Jingfu's Tao protectors arrived with a group of experts. They blocked off the four from Kuang Fu and Yu Qingfeng's group at the foot of Xingliang Mountain. They could neither advance nor retreat. "It's you again, District Mistress Xian Yuan. Looks like it's not Yi Qinghan protecting you to become the emperor, but you protecting Yi Qinghan to become the emperor," the Tao protector said coldly. The district mistress snorted and said disdainfully, "You don't have to worry about that. You can't stop me with just these few people. Get lost." "Is that so? This old man can't stop you, but there are others who can. They can even capture you alive," the Tao protector sneered and quickly retreated more than 100 meters with his team. Whoosh! The void distorted and the ground shook. A figure appeared 30 meters in front of the district mistress. His aura was monstrous, and his divine power was vast. The 5 elements of heaven and earth were in chaos, making one's hair stand on end. It was the 5 elements Master God's successor, Su Tianya. "Why are you here?" The district mistress's aura stagnated. This person was in the same cultivation level as Tao Sovereign before, but now, he was in the 3rd stage and was recognized by the primordial sovereign godhead. His combat power was much stronger than before. Su Tianya looked at the district mistress coldly and asked, "I heard that your heaven-suppressing palace's heaven-suppressing marquis might be from the Yin clan. I'm here to verify if it's true or not." The district mistress was instantly enraged. She felt that the 5 elements god priests might have betrayed Yi Qinghan. However, she said firmly, "Su Tianya, do you think our celestial nation's monarch can't even tell if he is from the Yin clan? Although immortal monarch Qing Zun is not a primordial immortal monarch, He was recognized by the heavens and became one of the 5 great immortal monarchs. How can the person he personally conferred be from the Yen clan? Chapter 2656. Outside of Xingliang Mountain, the two sides were confronting each other. Perhaps the owner's strength was not the strongest, but she was definitely the most beautiful. Even the inheritor of the archaic main god shrine had to give her some face, so Su Tianya did not directly make a move. Hearing the owner's explanation, Su Tianya shook his head and said indifferently, Jin Yang, Mu Qingfeng, Shui Sihai, Feng Zhongnan, and Tang Zun, the 5 of them followed you from the beginning. They also guessed that Yi Qinghan was from the Yen clan. And this Dao friend just told me that Yi Qinghan might really be from the Yen clan. This matter is of great importance, so I advise you not to act recklessly. Hand these disciples over to me and I will bring them to the crazy sect to verify their authenticity. The owner took a deep breath and said angrily, to think that the 5 elements divine lord would be played like a monkey by the Tao protector of an emperor's successor. A few years ago, when they fought against Crazed Manor, both sides suffered heavy losses. That's why they're waiting for an opportunity to take revenge and slander Crazed Manor everywhere. Yi Qinghan does indeed have something from the Yen clan. The Yen ancestor's right arm was obtained from the ancient heavenly emperor. You can't possibly say that the ancient heavenly emperor is also from the Yen clan, right? Then how do you explain what Jin Yang, Tang Zun, and the others said? Su Tianya frowned and asked. The owner took a deep breath and said, Tang Zun and the others have never interacted with the heaven-suppressing Marquis. How can they make such a judgment? Isn't this nonsense? You don't need to ask. They have their own channels. Owner, I will give you face and not attack you. But let me take these people away. Su Tianya's indifferent words were filled with an incomparably firm order. The inheritor of the primordial master god was indeed not ordinary. His words and actions were law and his cultivation was monstrous. He gave the owner great pressure. The strongest person in Kuang Manor was Yi Mingxi, but she was only comparable to a 3rd-degree realm expert. Moreover, it was just a fight. After a long time, she would definitely not be a match for a 3rd-degree realm expert. If the owner gave up, the fate of these people would be sealed. However, Yi Mingxi's face was cold and emotionless. She didn't even have the slightest bit of fear. What if I don't agree? The owner replied coldly. You can't stop me. Square owner, I don't want to cripple you on account of how difficult it was for you to cultivate. With your current realm, you simply can't reach the 4th form of the immemorial realm. But I am now comparable to an immemorial divine general, a true immemorial divine general, so you are not my opponent. Su Tianya said quietly. Whoosh! The district master's aura burst forth as he waved his hand to control the momentum of the world. I want to give it a try. Just as Yi Qinghan had said, didn't he say the same thing when faced with the emperor's legacy, Zhongzheng? I want to try. It was filled with unyielding stubbornness, unbending pride, and not hesitating to die. Su Tianya's eyes flickered. The strength of the owner was not weak. She might have been stopped by the protector of the Dao sovereign, but that did not mean that she was not strong. It was because the protector of the Dao sovereign was too strong. He did not lose to the current Dao sovereign, nor did he lose to Su Tianya, the inheritor of the 5 elements immemorial master god. Dao sovereign and Su Tianya were still young, so they had plenty of time. In less than 100,000 years, they could surpass that divine general's inheritance. After all, that divine general's inheritance had lasted for far too long. Then you can give it a try. Su Tianya said coldly. If you lose, I won't kill you. You will submit to me and become my slave. If you win, I won't ask about Yi Qinghan's identity anymore. The words "become my slave" struck the weak spot of the district master. Once she became his slave, it would be an eternal humiliation. The district master's gaze was cold, and she was silent for a long time. This meant that she did not have the confidence to win, and she might lose miserably. This was because Su Tianya had the immemorial Master God's spark, and the Master God's power in his body was endless. He was equivalent to an inexhaustible fourth-form super-expert. If she could not defeat him in a short period of time, she would be the one to lose. At this time, Yi Mingxi's eyes changed. There was actually a Tao seal condensing in her eyes, and there was not a trace of emotion. Merciless killing intent filled the air, and the merciless Tao rumbled incessantly. It was like raging waves crashing against the shore, and its aura reached the clouds. I hate arrogant alien races like you the most. You stand at the so-called high point of cultivation and judge others' lives. Yi Mingxi's cold voice made everyone's hair stand on end. Even Jian Qinxue was stunned. He hurriedly reached out to pull Yi Mingxi, hoping that she would restrain herself. However, when he was half a meter away from Yi Mingxi, he was repelled by a layer of energy. He could not touch her at all. Yi Chentian took a deep breath and hurriedly called out, "Auntie, don't be rash. Wake up." Medusa also called out in a low voice, and it reached the depths of Yi Mingxi's soul. Unfortunately, Yi Mingxi had already completely entered the merciless Tao. The merciless Tao, this Tao really does exist. I thought it was a made-up Tao of nothingness. Su Tianya looked at Yi Mingxi in surprise. She was only in the first stage, but she gave him a sense of danger. A trace of killing intent flashed in his heart. Since ancient times, no one had cultivated the merciless Tao. The legendary merciless Tao was too dry and lonely. There was no emotional fluctuation. Who could do it under normal circumstances? Powerful cultivators did not need to do this. They only needed to go into seclusion. They had inheritors and clansmen. Unless they were crazy, who would be willing to cultivate the merciless Tao? Unfortunately, Yi Mingxi had been guarding the imperial mausoleum alone for so long. Even with Yi Yun accompanying her, there was not much to talk about. She had achieved the merciless Tao and mistakenly entered the merciless Tao. The owner looked back at Yi Mingxi and snorted, "Su Tianyao, the battle between us will either result in death or becoming an emperor. There is no winner or loser." Boom! The owner stomped on the ground and soared into the sky. The wind and clouds between heaven and earth suddenly changed. Day turned into night. Billions of stars flashed in the Milky Way. The vast universe seemed so grand at this moment. Whoosh! The owner's aura soared to the sky. He looked down and said proudly, "The Milky Way reversal. Today, I will prove that it is not the number one divine ability below the immortal emperor realm, but a true emperor technique. It is comparable to the sun, moon, and sky. Then I will let you see the 5 elements technique." Whoosh! Su Tianya soared into the sky. The 5 elements were in chaos. Anyone who used the 5 elements lost control. In front of him, those who cultivated the 5 elements could no longer fight. Whoosh! The owner and Su Tianya clashed and started a battle of life and death. It was no longer a gambling battle. This battle would result in either death or injury. Boom, boom, boom. The sky roared and the ground cracked. Every attack of the two contained the Tao of sure kill. Billions of stars, space-time distorted, and ancient order collapsed. Not long after the two started fighting, Yi Mingxi rushed towards Zongjing Fu's Tao protector. The only 4th form was blocked. It was unknown who would win and who would lose. Boom! Yi Mingxi attacked mercilessly. Her physical body was tempered by the merciless thunder calamity. It would not lose to Yi Qinghan's absolute saint golden body. The merciless Tao seal was indestructible. It could even penetrate the defensive energy of the 4th form and attack the physical body directly. Boom, boom, boom. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Yi Mingxi and the 4th form expert rushed into the distance, leaving a large space for Yu Qingfeng and the others to fight. "Kill. Let's end this quickly," Jian Qinxue ordered. Medusa and Yi Chintian took the lead and rushed forward. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Woo woo woo. In a split second, heavy snow swirled in the air, drowning the mountains and rivers. Thousands of ice swords filled the sky. The swords' cry shook the 9 heavens. The murderous aura of the 10,000 swords returned to origin shocked everyone. Yu Qingfeng and the others were shocked. They did not expect to fight against a major force. However, this was the best time to pledge their loyalty to the Kuang sect. If they won this battle, the Kuang sect would acknowledge them. It's time to make a contribution. We don't want to be slaves. This battle is the best time. What are we waiting for? Yu Qingfeng roared and took the lead to attack. Chapter 2657. Outside Xingliang Mountain, blood flowed like a river. The masters from the 3 sides were fighting, and their killing intent was soaring. The Great Path Master God's inheritance was indifferent. They watched the 3 sides fight to the death, waiting for both sides to suffer so that they could reap the benefits. The Tao Master's guardian watched the battle indifferently. He waved his hand to mobilize the masters and said coldly, "None of these 3 forces can be let go. Kill Xianyuan Square and Sutian Cliff. As for the others, it's best to capture them alive. Those who can't be captured alive will be killed without mercy." Yes. Hundreds of masters looked down and waited for the opportunity to attack. Time flew like a shuttle. The sun set and the moon rose and the stars moved. In the blink of an eye, more than 10 days had passed. The 2 masters in the 4th state were still fighting, but several people from Yu Qingfeng's group of small forces had died. Medusa and Yi Chintian were seriously injured. Only Jian Qinxue was controlling the snow and ice swords to attack indiscriminately. Even if he couldn't kill the enemy, he could stop them from losing. Yu Qingfeng and the other masters in the 3rd state cooperated with Jian Qinxue to attack and defend. They repelled the enemy's attacks several times, but the enemy also suffered many casualties. It was a situation where both sides suffered. The most terrifying thing was the battle with Yi Mingxi. A master in the 1st state resisted the master in the 4th state. The merciless Tao seal killed thousands of Tao. She was emotionless and selfless. She didn't look back even when her battle clothes were stained with blood. The 4th state master's hair stood on end. He had never been afraid of a certain kind of people, even the Yen clan. However, Yi Mingxi's merciless Tao was only a legendary thing. No law or divine power could stop the merciless Tao seal. Boom, boom, boom. The merciless Tao seal radiated from Yi Mingxi's eyes. Thousands of divine light rose from the ground and covered half of the mountains and rivers. The heavenly way is emotionless. Then I can represent the heavenly way, Yi Mingxi said in a low voice. She controlled the momentum of heaven and earth. Her body was almost dry and her flesh shrank. She was almost fighting with her life. Boom! Yi Mingxi's palm fell from the sky. The Tao seal crushed the order and the mountains and rivers. A thought that could destroy everything hit the Milky Way. It was so oppressive that even the divine general's inheritor's pupils shrank. What kind of Tao is this? She is so emotionless. Her killing aura doesn't even exist. I can't believe that a marionette can unleash such terrifying power. Even though Yi Mingxi was powerful, he was still disdainful because such a person could no longer be considered a human. She was just a battle puppet. There was no meaning to it. This was also the reason why no one in the Archean era practiced this great Tao. Boom! Right at this moment, the merciless Tao imprint shattered everything, killing until the mountains and rivers moved in grief, and all living things shed tears. It directly clashed with that 4th state expert, and waves of energy spread out for 1,000 li, bringing disaster to the fighting crowd outside Xingliang Mountain. Whoosh! A+. Dozens of people were blown away, including Jian Qinxue and the severely injured Yi Chintian. They crashed into the barrier outside Xingliang Mountain. Poof! Almost all of Zhong Jingfu's subordinates were vomiting blood. Yu Qingfeng and the others' vision turned black and they almost fainted. Whoosh! Capture him! The successor of the primordial divine general waved his hand, and more than 100 masters rushed down from Xingliang Mountain and quickly surrounded the masters of both sides. They were all severely injured and unable to fight back, so they could only let the other side capture them. The powerful inheritor of the immemorial divine general intimidated everyone, and no one dared to make a move. Jian Qinshui immediately said, "Don't resist, wait for help." Everyone was captured, including Zhong Jingfu's people. Dao Master's people wanted resources, but it was up to Kuang Fu and Zhong Jingfu if they were willing to spend resources to redeem these people. At this moment, Yi Mingxi's merciless Dao was getting purer and purer. All the emotions in her body were refined by the merciless Dao. Her power was getting stronger, but her vitality was decreasing, and she was close to death. Jiangnan Immortal Valley. Yi Qinghan was in seclusion to comprehend the 6th level of the human Dao. However, he felt uneasy at this moment, and his Dao heart was fluctuating. His eyelids kept twitching, which was a warning from his bloodline. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan opened his eyes and frowned. The warning was even more serious after he woke up. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan rushed out of seclusion and came to the outside of the valley. Yi Qinxing was still guarding the mountain, and he immediately asked, "Did anything big happen recently?" Yi Qinxing did not hesitate and immediately replied, 2 months ago, a person called Yan Yunbei came. He said that Xingliang Mountain was going to receive him, and that the owner had already gone. He said that if he did not return within a year, he would ask me to call you out. Boom! Yi Qinghan stomped on the ground and sped through the air, heading straight for Xingliang Mountain. Whoosh whoosh whoosh! Yi Qinghan's speed was extremely fast, and the 9 beads chain gourd provided him with endless power. As soon as he landed, he crushed the mountain rocks and dove into the distance. Hum! The 7-foot heavy saber slashed through the air, and its blade emitted a cold light, splitting the order. It was almost as if he was using a forbidden technique as he moved toward Xingliang Mountain. The journey that should have taken more than 10 days finally took Yi Qinghan 2 days to reach Xingliang Mountain. Xingliang Mountain's barrier covered the mountains and rivers, and light shone in all directions. Whoosh! Boom! Yi Qinghan did not even ask. He slashed through the mountains and rivers, and directly cut through the first layer of the barrier. Boom! Yi Qinghan landed on the main road of Xingliang Mountain, and his eyes were sharp. He scanned the surroundings and shouted angrily, "Open the barrier!" Whoosh! Yi Qinghan's murderous intent soared into the sky, and it reverberated through the entire valley of Xingliang Mountain. The successor of the primordial divine general was still opposite Xingliang Mountain, and he did not have time to defend himself. Yi Qinghan saw that no one was opening the barrier, and that they were being attacked instead. He raised his saber and slashed again, breaking through the second defensive barrier. Buzz! Whoosh! All 9 mouths of the 9 beads chain gourd opened and began to devour the barrier's energy. The energy barrier became extremely weak, and it could not withstand Yi Qinghan's attack at all. Boom! Bang! Yi Qinghan was annoyed by the attacks of some of the priests. He retracted the heavy saber with his right hand and punched through the mountains and rivers. He directly destroyed the mountain peak occupied by more than 10 priests. The priests were drowned in the energy, and they were annihilated alive. More than 10 consecutive barriers were broken, and Yi Qinghan did not even take half an hour. Boom! When Yi Qinghan punched through Xingliang Mountain, the successor of the primordial divine general only reacted. He looked coldly at Yi Qinghan, and his eyes flashed with murderous intent. However, when Yi Qinghan saw that Yi Mengxi was almost dead and had fallen into the ruthless Dao, and when he saw Jian Qinshui Medusa and Yi Chentian being tied up, his murderous intent was much stronger than the successor of the primordial divine general. Good. Very good. I did not want to participate in the battle, but you forced me. From today onwards, Quang Manor will officially participate in the War of the Nobles. Boom! Yi Qinghan stomped on the ground, and his body moved like lightning. Flames appeared on his right fist, and he faced Zongjing Fu's Tao Protector with a punch. When the Tao techniques collided, smoke rose everywhere, and the mountains and rivers moved. Crack! The bones in the Tao Protector's hand were broken, and he was sent flying to the back. His body fell heavily on the ground, but before he could dodge, Yi Qinghan stomped on his throat, crushing it. Then, he punched fiercely, and his head was smashed into the rock. Brain matter splattered, and blood flowed all over the ground. The soul in the fourth state did not even have time to scream before it fell into darkness, and entered the eternal chaos of nirvana. The first person in the fourth state died tragically, and it signaled that the War of the Nobles had reached its climax. When Yi Mingxi saw Yi Qinghan appear in front of her, her lips curled into a silent smile. Her body was exhausted, and she slowly fell down. Her fingers reached forward, as if she wanted to hold onto Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan's figure flashed, and he grabbed Yi Mingxi's waist. He said hoarsely, "You idiot, why did you enter the ruthless Tao? What did I say back then?" Unfortunately, Yi Mingxi could no longer hear him. Her soul and vitality were about to reach the end. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan waved his hand, and a light flashed on his forehead, and Yi Mingxi disappeared. Boom! Yi Qinghan roared angrily, and he unsheathed his saber. He stabbed it into the ground, and a violent wind blew in all directions. It swept up the black hair of the gods on Xingliang Mountain, and their divine robes fluttered. Seeing Yi Qinghan's shroud fluttering in the wind, his black hair fluttering, and his killing intent intertwining, the immemorial divine general's successor's heart sank, and there was a hint of fear in his eyes. That ruthlessness and willpower that would rather die than live in dishonor were truly frightening. Boom! 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 Whoosh! Yi Qinghan dragged 7-foot Crazy Man toward Xingliang Mountain and said coldly, "Leave the people of the Crazy Manor to me. That depends on whether you're willing to part with your resources." The immemorial divine general's successor retracted his fear and said coldly. Yi Qinghan's killing intent surged, and his voice was as cold as ice, cutting into the bodies of the gods. "I'll use the heads of all the gods on Xingliang Mountain in exchange for them. If you dare to kill anyone of my Crazy Manor, I guarantee that not even a blade of grass on Xingliang Mountain will be left alive today." Chapter 2658. Tat tat tat. Boom boom boom. Yi Qinghan slowly climbed up Xingliang Mountain. Every step he took caused mountains and rivers to collapse. His aura was so powerful that it could crush the aura of the gods. In terms of aura, there were not many people who could compare to Yi Qinghan. Even the inheritance of an emperor was only so. Even the primordial immortal emperor's murderous aura was not as strong when he was young. The light in Yi Qinghan's eyes seemed to be even more emotionless. No. Yi Qinghan's eyes were not for the enemies, but for the people of Insane Manor. "Do you want the heads of all the people on the mountain or resources?" Yi Qinghan asked coldly as he reached the middle of the mountain. His aura was even stronger. The primordial divine general's inheritor's murderous aura was restrained. His eyes narrowed into a thin line as he unsheathed his divine sword and pointed it at Jianqinshu. He said coldly, "It seems that I have underestimated the master of Insane Manor. However, in my opinion, you are still an ant. If you dare to take another step, this sword will pierce through this beauty's throat." Boom! Yi Qinghan stabbed the sword into the rock beneath his feet and took out the immemorial Yinyang sword. He stared at Jianqinshu. This time, he could only gamble that Jianqinshu could pull out the immemorial Yinyang sword. Jianqinshu was already extremely cold. If she could not pull out the immemorial Yinyang sword, It meant that this was her fate. You want resources? How about this immemorial yin-yang sword? Yi Qinghan asked coldly. How could the primordial divine general not know about the immemorial yin-yang sword? It was an extremely powerful sword of the Taigu Emperor. However, to them, it was also a useless sword. No one could pull it out or use it. What was the point of having it? The Flame Ancestor's right arm and the 9-linked gourd. I only want these two in exchange for the lives of your people. The primordial divine general's inheritor could not help but sneer when he saw Yi Qinghan compromise. Taking away Yi Qinghan's Flame Ancestor's arm and 9-linked gourd was equivalent to cutting off his 2 arms. So what if his aura was strong? Ha ha ha! Yi Qinghan threw his head back and laughed maniacally. His laughter caused the sky to tremble and the mountains and rivers to tremble. Whoosh! Draw your sword! Yi Qinghan threw out the immemorial yin-yang sword and stared at Jian Qinshui. He let out a low roar that shook the heavenly river. The immemorial yin-yang sword pierced through the void and appeared at the top of the mountain. Jian Qinshui's hands were tied up, but there was no restriction on his mind power. He used his mind power to wrap around the sword hilt. Whoosh! Boom! The inheritor of the immemorial divine general did not manage to kill Jian Qinshui in time. He swung his sword at the immemorial yin-yang sword, wanting to cut it down. However, just as lightning flashed and thunder roared, the immemorial yin-yang sword unsheathed itself. A long rainbow pierced through the mountains and rivers, causing the way of heaven to submit. Whoosh! The sword chi shook off the divine chains on Jian Qinshui's arms. It seemed to be able to control itself and appeared in Jian Qinshui's hands. Open! Jian Qinshui swung his sword and slashed horizontally, sweeping across the mountains and rivers. Even the mountain peaks were chopped off. The sword chi directly sliced apart half of Xingliang Mountain, flattening the peak. Boom! Kacha! The inheritor of the immemorial divine general had goosebumps. He swung his sword in front of him to block, but the immemorial divine general's natal divine sword was directly sliced apart. The sword chi sliced through his lower body, and the immemorial divine general's supreme inheritor's legs were directly chopped off. No! Boom! The inheritor of the immemorial divine general's body flew backward. His chi and blood were in turmoil. He spat out a large mouthful of essence blood and fell heavily onto the path of Xingliang Mountain. His body was twisted and bleeding non-stop. Even if he used his immemorial divine power, he could not stop his wounds from bleeding. The immemorial divine general's godhead exploded. Divine power surged and wrapped around his legs. It was as though he had exhausted his source. In an instant, his legs were suppressed and his body was reconstructed. Soon, his body was mostly restored, but his realm dropped from the 4th state to the 3rd state. His strength had dropped by more than 100 times. This was still Jian Qinshui using the immemorial yin-yang sword. If the immemorial yin-yang sword had activated the Emperor Sword's power, this inheritor of the immemorial divine general would have died. Ka. After Jian Qinshui swung the sword, he quickly cut the chains on Yi Chentian, Medusa, and the others. He quickly cut off the chains on them, and Yu Qingfeng and the others. Then, he quickly led the others down the mountain. The people of the immemorial divine general's bloodline were stunned. They did not expect Jian Qinshui to use his mind to pull out the immemorial yin-yang sword and let them escape down the mountain. However, after a while, the immemorial yin-yang sword was sheathed again. Jian Qinshui could not pull it out no matter how hard he tried. The immemorial yin-yang sword had its own consciousness. It felt that Jian Qinshui was qualified to pull it out. However, it was only qualified and not recognized. This time, it was pulled out to save people. Whether it could be recognized or not depended on whether Jian Qinshui could refine the immemorial yin-yang jade and cultivate the immemorial yin-yang immortal code. However, since he had saved them, Yi Qinghan did not care anymore. He waved his hand and said, "Qinxue, take them down the mountain first. Today, I will raise Xingliang Mountain to the ground." Whoosh! Jian Qinxue and the others quickly rushed down the mountain and found a place to rest and heal their wounds. Yu Qingfeng and the others were seriously injured. At this time, they were lucky to be alive. Their lives and Taoist hearts had been sublimated. Da-da-da! Boom! Yi Qinghan pulled out his saber again and rushed to the top of Xingliang Mountain. He slashed continuously. All the divine worshippers below the third level were killed. Blood flowed down and dyed Xingliang Mountain red. Bodies rolled down. As he said, not even a blade of grass survived. Wherever Yi Qinghan passed, bodies piled up and blood spurted. His eyes were cold and ruthless, as if he wanted to kill everything. Demon! The successor of the immemorial divine general looked up at Yi Qinghan slaughtering his clansmen at the top of the mountain and could not help but be furious. He gritted his teeth and made up his mind. He took out something that looked like a heart from the divine ring and swallowed it directly. Yi Qinghan, if I don't kill you today, I am not a man. As soon as the successor of the immemorial divine general swallowed the heart-like thing, his cultivation rose rapidly. His momentum soared and his battle strength rose rapidly. In the blink of an eye, he rushed to the fourth state. He had returned to his peak state and was even stronger than before. That was the heart of his ancestor. This was the true treasure of medicine. Once he swallowed the heart of the immemorial divine general, his strength would reach the peak of the immemorial divine general in just a short 1,000 years. In the past, he did not use it because he wanted to rely on himself. He did not want to blaspheme his ancestor. But now, he had no choice. Yi Qinghan was about to kill all the experts of his clan. Boom! The successor of the immemorial divine general soared into the sky and blocked Yi Qinghan's path at the top of the mountain. The two experts' auras were like rainbows, and their killing intent shattered the order. You've got guts. You even dared to kill the divine general's divine worshippers. I will uproot your crazy manner. I will not leave a single person alive. He roared, and the broken sword in his hand shone with a divine light. Yi Qinghan looked at him coldly. He waved his hand and took away the 7-foot crazed hammer. Suddenly, his eyes flashed with a light that could swallow the heavens. The successor was so frightened that he took 10 steps back. You also obtained the flame ancestor's eyes. The successor of the immemorial divine general sucked in a breath of cold air. The killing intent in his eyes grew thicker. Boom! Yi Qinghan punched through space and shouted angrily, "What I obtained has nothing to do with you. Your actions today have resulted in this result. I will slaughter your entire clan." Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Boom! His right arm shone brightly as he punched his opponent's broken sword. The sword trembled, and the terrifying force sent it flying into the palace behind. Chapter 2659. Yen Zhu's arm was comparable to the Taigu Emperor's weapon. This punch contained the power to shatter the stars. The air of the primordial divine general was pushed back dozens of meters by pure physical strength. He crashed into an ancient building and collapsed it. Resources? You may be alive to take them, but will you be alive to spend them? Yi Qinghan's voice was hoarse and piercing to the bone. After his successful punch, he grabbed the broken sword with his left hand and punched Yi Qinghan's chest with his right fist. His fist smashed through the ancient stone wall as fast as lightning. Boom! Boom! Yi Qinghan was like a ferocious tiger. His iron fists rained down on the air of the primordial divine general, making him spit out blood. The air of the primordial divine general was indeed powerful. If it had been someone else, he would have been killed by so many punches. However, he only spat out blood. He flipped his body and used the momentum to shake off Yi Qinghan. His power was vast. He flipped the broken sword in his hand and almost cut off Yi Qinghan's left hand. Whoosh, whoosh. The broken sword was like a rainbow. Its murderous aura was soaring. Yi Qinghan, I will send you on your way. Whoosh, whoosh. The sword Qi tore the void and destroyed all Taoism. Its moves changed rapidly. Whoosh, whoosh. Yi Qinghan was forced to retreat continuously. His eyes flashed brightly as he saw through Yi Qinghan's move. However, this Archean Divine General's successor was too fast. Even if Yi Qinghan could see through Yi Qinghan's moves, he couldn't resist. Boom, boom. The broken sword stood on Yi Qinghan's right arm. Sparks flew everywhere. Their hands were numb and almost broken. Boom. The aftermath sank several palaces and cracked mountains. However, it still did not shake Taoist master out. The air of the primordial divine general alone was enough to stop Yi Qinghan. The fight between the two was not any weaker than the fight between Su Tianyao and the owner. Two of them were in the starry sky and the other two were on the mountain peak. The aftermath spread for countless miles and shocked countless forces. This kind of desperate fight between super forces was rare in the early stage of the noble battle. However, today there were 4 masters fighting at once. It seemed that the void ridge would be shattered. Kill! An angry roar sounded, shattering the nebula. The ancient divine ability displayed its might, and streak after streak of rainbow light pierced through the stellar river. God slaying and immortal slaying. One sword pierces the rainbow and cries of eternity. Boom! Whoosh! Roar! In a battle of supreme divine abilities, neither side was willing to admit defeat, all of them fighting with their lives on the line. Yi Qinghan was incomparably powerful. His punches almost shattered the broken sword. The clansmen of this primordial divine general were all sent flying by the aftershocks. They fell into pools of blood and suffered heavy casualties. Bathed in the river of blood, the two's battle robes and corpse-wrapping cloth were soaked in blood, dyed in divine blood. When the sky is covered by darkness, I will dye this land red with the blood of immortals and gods. Tear apart this endless darkness. Yi Qinghan stomped his foot, and the mountain under his feet collapsed, sinking dozens of meters. The 9-linked gourd swallowed all the power of the mountains and rivers to support his consumption. Meanwhile, the primordial divine general's successor used the primordial divine general's divinity as a foundation and continuously used his divine power to fight Yi Qinghan to the death. Both of them were stubborn. When they used their divine skills and divine abilities to the limit, their physical bodies resisted the explosion, displaying the domineering and poignant beauty of an ancient battle. Boom! Whoosh! The sky roared and lightning flashed. Red clouds covered the sky, as if they were sending off a supreme being. At this moment, the battle between Su Tianyao and the owner of the district had reached its climax. The more they fought, the braver they became. They fought from the sky to the ground, and Xingliang Mountain was almost flattened. Jianqianxue and the others did not have time to rest. They started to move back together. The immemorial yin-yang sword emitted a dense energy light, blocking the aftershock. Crystal-clear ice rose from the ground, but it was shattered into fine powder in the blink of an eye. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Dozens of fourth-form experts rushed over from afar. Many years ago, the Supreme Beings had been hiding in the depths, looking for an opportunity to kill this powerful opponent. The ancient Heavenly Emperor had arrived, so had Emperor Duan. Gu Jiutian had also arrived with the divine General Taijiang's bloodline. Zhongjing Fu had arrived personally. Seeing one of his Tao protectors almost sunk into the ground, and his corpse was split into 2, he could not help but be furious. The Thunder Emperor stepped on lightning and arrived. No one dared to stand still as they watched the battle between the 4. They did not expect that Su Tianyao was the only one who had inherited the immemorial Master God. The others were not. Is that person Yi Qinghan from the Crazy Manor? He can actually be compared to an immemorial divine general's inheritor. Not bad, he can be my slave and fight for me. The Thunder Emperor put his hands behind his back. The origin of thunder and lightning seemed to be surging in his thunder battle robe. Endless power was hidden in his body. His eyes were domineering, as if an immemorial immortal emperor had personally arrived. Boom, whoosh! The mountains and rivers were in chaos, and all living things were trembling. The weak fled, but the strong took the initiative to approach. They looked coldly at the four people who were crazily fighting. They were all risking their lives. If they lost, they would die. If they won, the probability of becoming an emperor would be infinitely increased. Boom! The immemorial divine general's inheritor that Yi Qinghan was fighting was kicked away again. His chest caved in, and blood spurted out of his mouth. However, Yi Qinghan was in a worse state. His chest was directly pierced by the broken sword. However, the broken sword was still in his body, so he could still control the bleeding. Otherwise, his identity would have been exposed. After losing the broken sword, the immemorial divine general's situation became even worse. In terms of physical strength, he could not win against Yi Qinghan. Boom! Yi Qinghan pulled back his fist as if he wanted to punch through the void ridge. His right fist was unstoppable, and it could shatter mountains and rivers. Die for me! Boom! Hua! Yi Qinghan used 90% of his strength in this punch. He only used 10% of his strength to defend his surroundings. The momentum of this punch was monstrous, and it drowned everything. In the blink of an eye, an ancient palace was flattened, and several divine general experts who were waiting for an opportunity to strike were killed. Bang! The immemorial divine general's inheritor was filled with murderous intent. He was unwilling to be defeated. He threw a powerful punch, and his godhood was mobilized. However, he seemed to have forgotten that Yi Qinghan's right arm was not his, but Yan Zhu's. Crack! His divine bones were broken, and the immemorial divine general's right arm was smashed into a bloody mess. The immemorial divine general's godhood was shaken out of his body. Roar! The immemorial divine general let out a mournful roar. He was unwilling to lose to a junior, but his body was uncontrollably smashed backward. Yi Qinghan's veins bulged. He bounced up, wanting to take advantage of the situation to kill. His body curled up in the air, and he used his bones to hit the immemorial divine general. Hua! Boom! At this moment, the great Tao of heaven and earth roared and gathered into a sword of immortality. It fell from the sky and pierced Yi Qinghan's back. Yi Qinghan was shocked. He immediately changed his attack. He kicked the immemorial divine general's broken body and used the momentum to retreat more than 1,000 meters away. He waved his hand to take the 9-linked gourd. Yan Zhu's eyes pierced through the void, and he directly saw the attacker's location. Tao Master had appeared. A very young man, about 25 or 26 years old, with delicate features and clear eyes, walked in the air. The great Tao of heaven and earth roared, welcoming his arrival. Yi Qinghan sneered and said, "Beat the dog and the master will come. However, my goal today is not to beat the dog, but to flatten Xingliang Mountain. Not even a blade of grass will survive. Whether it's the master or the dog, I will kill them all." Chapter 2660. Kill both humans and dogs. In front of so many people, he first fought with the successor of a divine general and then declared war on the successor of an archaic master god. Strong enough, the gods were in an uproar. Who would have thought that after a few thousand years, Yi Qinghan would become so strong that he could be compared to someone in the fourth form? Although Yi Qinghan had not obtained the Flame Ancestor's eyes for long, he had forcibly raised his cultivation to the peak of the second stage, almost to the third stage. He would not lose to the Emperor's inheritors or the third stage archaic Master God's inheritors. Tao Master didn't even know Yi Qinghan. At this moment, he didn't understand why Yi Qinghan hated him so much. Looking at Yi Qinghan's domineering manner, he couldn't help but snort. Then, he turned to the severely injured inheritor of the far ancient immortal general and asked, "Senior Lian, what happened?" Lian Ying, the successor of the Archean divine general, was a bloody mess, his face contorted in anger. He couldn't believe that he had lost to an ant. He crawled up from the ground, coughing up blood. After a while, he recovered, wiping the blood off his mouth with his sleeve. This old servant only captured a few people from Crazy Manor, and yet this ant wants to kill Xing Liangshan. He's a demon. He has no faith and shouldn't be allowed to live. Yi Qinghan heard this and his lips curled into a mocking smile. He replied coldly, "If killing a god means that you have no faith, then what is the point of killing people from the Crazy Manor? Can an archaic divine general's inheritor kill as he pleases? Should we just surrender without putting up a fight? You may be from the Yen clan. You have refined the Flame Ancestor's arms and Flame Ancestor's eyes. You deserve to die." Lian Ying roared. Everyone was shocked and stared at Yi Qinghan. "Ha ha ha!" Yi Qinghan laughed and retorted disdainfully, "Don't participate in the noble battle if you can't afford to lose. Why call yourself an emperor? Your master calling himself an emperor is a disgrace to the world. I'm afraid that only someone like you can casually place such a baseless accusation on someone else. I'm not the only one who refined the Yen ancestral arm. Do you dare to say that the ancient heavenly emperor is also a member of the Yen clan? Or do you think that because I don't have a strong background and a powerful guardian, you can frame me as you wish?" The ancient heavenly emperor's eyes flashed. His flame ancestral arm had been taken away by Yi Qinghan, and he had yet to vent his anger, but today, he was dragged into it. Whether it's refining Yen Zhu's arms or Yen Zhu's eyes, they can't be considered as evidence. Everyone in the world can refine them. It's just that the primordial god race and Yen clan's bloodline conflict, so refining them is even more difficult. If it's not the primordial god race or a pure primordial god race bloodline, anyone can refine them. Moreover, it's very easy to find the technique. Lian Ying, don't talk nonsense here. Using this kind of reason to frame me, aren't you implying that I'm also a Yen clan member? You have ulterior motives and can't afford to lose. You've simply thrown away the face of a divine general. The ancient heavenly emperor coldly scolded. This sentence cleared up all of Yi Qinghan's doubts. Even Yi Qinghan himself didn't know the reason. Everyone immediately felt relieved. They were truly afraid of another Yen clan member appearing. Yi Qinghan let out a sigh of relief. He expressionlessly looked at Dao Sovereign and Lian Ying. The killing intent in his eyes was even thicker. However, at this time, he couldn't secretly use the Yen Zhu's eyes and human Dao anymore. Even if there was a trace, this group of Supremes would be able to find it. After knowing why Yi Qinghan wanted to annihilate Xing Liang Mountain, Dao Sovereign coldly snorted and said, "Heaven-suppressing Marquis, your crazy manner offended my Xing Liang Mountain. We only captured a few people, but you want to annihilate an entire mountain. Such a vicious and merciless person truly doesn't have the qualifications to be an emperor or live. Today, this sovereign will enforce justice on behalf of the heavens and kill you. If you surrender, I can spare the lives of the people from your insane manner." Buzz! Yi Qinghan swung his saber, causing the sky to distort. He coldly replied, "Unfortunately, regardless of whether you surrender or not, I will still kill Xing Liang Mountain." Boom! Yi Qinghan raised his saber and slashed down. Space and time collapsed. The 9-chain ring gourd provided an endless amount of immortal spiritual energy, shaking off the grand Tao and blocking all Tao technique. In the blink of an eye, he arrived in front of Tao Sovereign. Buzz! Whoosh! The grand Tao in the sky gathered and formed a huge barrier. It was like a lingering swamp that could swallow all power. Facing Yi Qinghan's powerful saber, he didn't even move. He relied on his will to control the Tao technique and blocked the heavy madness attack. Whoosh! Boundless divine light and thousands of Taoist techniques enveloped 7-foot berserk, preventing Yi Qinghan from taking even half a step closer. Yi Qinghan wielded the 7-foot frenzy and pressed down with all his might in an attempt to break through the defense. Even space was being sliced apart. However, the Tao of nature was boundless. When he was only a meter away from the Tao sovereign, he was unable to force his way forward. Crack, crack, crack. Boom! The rocks under their feet cracked. Tao sovereign's 10 fingers intertwined, controlling the grand Tao power. Divine light gathered into a small divine dragon, controlling its mouth to swallow everything. The sharp, murderous aura forced Yi Qinghan to give up his attack. Yi Qinghan felt the aura of death. He retreated and returned to the ground. At this moment, he knew that once an emperor's inheritance and an immemorial master god's inheritance reached the 3rd stage, their combat power would be infinitely increased. However, once an emperor's inheritance or an immemorial master god's inheritance reached the 3rd stage, it would be extremely difficult to reach the 4th stage. It would take at least 30 to 50,000 years to reach the 4th stage. If one wanted to become an emperor after reaching the 4th stage, it would depend on luck and talent. Some people stopped at the 4th stage and became the first person under the immemorial master god, but they were not destined to reach that stage. This included Yi Qinghan. After reaching the 3rd stage, even if he had the Yen ancestor's eyes, he wouldn't be able to become an emperor without hundreds of thousands of years. With one attack, he knew that the strength of an immemorial master god's inheritance was far beyond the average 4th stage. However, it shouldn't be on par with people like the ancient celestial emperor or Mu Wu Juefeng. Tao Master took a step back as his legs went numb. Although he seemed to have easily suppressed Yi Qinghan's attack, he knew that the power of this blade was enough to split open a dead star. He wanted to establish his dominance and suppress the Tao hearts of the other experts, but in the end, he could only suffer the consequences of his own actions. Yi Qinghan took a deep breath. His right arm was about to explode. Endless power poured into the galaxy, and the 5 elements were forcefully mobilized. Even if Su Tianya came personally, he might not be able to compete with Yi Qinghan for the control of the 5 elements. The 5 elements balance, the holy golden body, the 9-linked gourd, the Yen ancestor's right arm, and the Yen ancestor's eyes. All the advantages were unleashed in an instant. Qi soared into the galaxy, and dust rose. It created a power that could destroy gods and immortals. I want to see the power of an immemorial master god. Boom. Ka ka ka. Yi Qinghan crossed his legs, and the earth cracked. He drew a yin-yang 8 trigrams. Then, the mountains and rivers moved. Heaven and earth roared. He held the blade with both hands, and the blade shone brightly. His will could fight the heavens, and his eyes could see through all illusions. Even the immemorial war god was no match for him. At this time, Tao Sovereign didn't dare to use his will to control the great Tao's defense. The immemorial master god's mark on his forehead erupted, and the master god's divine core came out of his body, devouring all the great Tao's power. Boom! Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The great Tao's power collapsed mountains and rivers, forming a sharp sword that tore through heaven and earth. It came from the depths of the sky, and it shone brightly, tearing through all the darkness. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan soared into the sky and slashed down with his blade, crashing into the sword. Boom! The strongest attacks of the 2 experts exploded, and the aftershocks made those in the 4th stage tremble. This was the power of an emperor. This was the true inheritance of an emperor. Zhongjing Fu's eyes were ruthless. He stared at Yi Qinghan unwillingly. He didn't expect Yi Qinghan to become so much stronger in just 2,000 years. He was afraid that he wouldn't be a match for him unless he used the Emperor's sword. Chapter 2661. Boom. The two experts collided like two stars. The shock waves shattered everything. Xingliang Mountain was smashed down and all the ancient palaces were shattered. The two supremes were extremely powerful. Not only did they not retreat after this exchange, they even unleashed stronger moves. It was as if they would not stop until they killed their enemy. The more they fought, the more courageous they became. At this moment, even the Emperor's inheritors were shocked. Yi Qinghan was not an Emperor's inheritor, nor was he an archaic overgod's inheritor. Yet, he could be compared to an Emperor's inheritor. Even if he was from the Yan clan, it shouldn't be so exaggerated. Those with Emperor's aura were full of fighting spirit. Yi Qinghan had stirred up their fighting spirit, but the others' Dao hearts were almost shattered. After this battle, perhaps only the great powers would dare to provoke Quang Prefecture. At this moment, the boss and Su Tianya had stopped fighting. The two were drenched in blood. The boss was slightly weaker, but she did not admit defeat because she did not have an archaic overgod divine spark or the Taigu Emperor's weapon. She could be proud of herself for being able to injure Su Tianya with an archaic overgod divine spark with her bare hand. At this moment, Su Tianya's eyes flashed with fighting spirit. Looks like he lives up to his reputation. Whether he is from the Yan clan or not, I will still fight him. I will trample him under my feet. Su Tianya's arrogance soared to the sky. With the 5 elements archaic overgod weapon in his hand, the 5 elements around him became chaotic and all of them submitted to his feet. The boss snorted and said with disdain, "It seems like Dao Sovereign is not weaker than you. Did you see him trample the Heaven Suppression Marquis under his feet?" Su Tianya coldly looked at the boss. He was extremely unhappy and sneered. "What? You've taken a fancy to this pretty boy? Why don't you follow me? In any case, I am the inheritor of an archaic overgod and have supreme prestige. Kings, nobles, and generals are all equal. Back then, didn't the 12 archaic immortal emperors also cultivate from a weak age? Be careful, or you will be trampled under his feet in the future." The boss snorted. Su Tianya became even angrier. He looked at the country toppling beauty of the owner, yet she was actually contradicting him for the sake of an ant. This made him extremely unhappy. "In the future, when I become an emperor, you will definitely regret what you said today," Su Tianya said coldly. The owner's arrogance soared to the heavens as she retorted domineeringly, "The birth of the world's first empress. I will make you regret the words you said today." The first empress. The owner was determined to win. For this battle, she had waited for too long. Otherwise, she would not have fought against the successor of the primordial master gods. However, she had benefited greatly from this battle. After she went into seclusion to consolidate her strength, her combat strength would increase significantly. How could Su Tianya not benefit when the owner was benefiting? This was also the reason why so many Supremes were so passionate about fighting to the death. They would either advance by stepping on corpses, or their corpses would be crushed by others and become the stepping stones of others. Boom! Bang! Apart from the battle between Yi Qinghan and Dao Master, no one else was moving. Everyone was watching the battle and learning from it. The two exerted their Dao and divine arts to the limit, causing the primordial era to crumble. Xingliang Mountain of the Void Ridge no longer existed. Just as Yi Qinghan said, he wanted to flatten Xingliang Mountain and make it barren. Bang bang bang! Boom boom boom! The two exchanged fists and palms. The sky-covering palm prints broke through the order, causing the great Dao to rumble continuously. Countless swords of the great Dao pierced through the mountains and rivers. The slightest carelessness would cause the sky to be dyed red with blood. The shroud was cut open, Yi Qinghan was shocked. If the battle continued, his identity would definitely be exposed. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Yi Qinghan began to dodge and no longer attack. After a long time, he broke free from Dao Master's attack. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan leaped into the air a few times and left the flattened Xingliang mountain. He slowly landed on the ground and said coldly, "The primordial inheritance is indeed extraordinary. I admire you." Dao Master took a deep breath. He had fought with Yi Qinghan for several hours, but he did not make any progress. How could he be satisfied? Heaven-suppressing Marquis, the outcome of this battle hasn't been decided yet. Are you going to end it like this? Dao Master stared coldly at Yi Qinghan and questioned in a deep voice. Yi Qinghan said indifferently, "If you want to fight, I will definitely accompany you. However, I came in a hurry today because I still have matters to attend to. But let me remind you first. If something happens to my sister, you and Zhongjing Fu will not be able to survive." Zhongjing Fu heard this and his killing intent surged. He glanced at Yi Qinghan's resolute face and said to Dao Master, "Dao brother, you and I are both inheritances of the primordial master gods. How can we let an ant clamor at us? Today, let's join hands and completely destroy the Kuang Manor. How about it?" Dao Master's eyes flashed fiercely. Just as he was about to nod, the owner's figure flashed and appeared beside Yi Qinghan. He coldly retorted, "You can try. The experts of my Qing Zun immortal empire don't only know how to eat." Hua! Whoosh! The 5 primordial god priests that originally belonged to the Qing Zun immortal empire all descended and stood firmly beside Su Tianyao. Su Tianyao coldly said, "The ancient gods and ancient immortals are one family. If you kill them today, count me in." 3 against 2, it was really too easy to destroy the Kuang Manor and the Qing Zun immortal empire. Hua! Boom! Jingfan Mountain Lord led a few supreme experts and appeared in front of everyone. She said without hesitation, "This seat also wishes to participate in this battle. I want to see if the inheritances of the primordial master gods are really that indestructible. I believe that the wheel of fortune has turned. In this era, no primordial master god inheritance or emperor inheritance can proclaim themselves as emperors." The newly promoted powers naturally wanted to challenge the ancient powers and rule over the undying immortal world. Yi Qinghan bowed slightly and said gratefully, "Many thanks for Mountain Lord's support. If there's a need in the future, this Marquis will definitely not hesitate." In an instant, the 3 major powers faced off against the 3 major powers. None of them were willing to back down. "Lightning Emperor, are you willing to make a move and wipe out these newly promoted powers? Let them see if our primordial master inheritances are really worthy of their reputation?" Zhongjing Fu stared at Lightning Emperor and asked in a deep voice. Lightning Emperor placed his hands behind his back and looked disdainfully at everyone. He originally wanted to subdue Yi Qinghan, but looking at the situation, it was impossible for Yi Qinghan to submit to the primordial master god inheritance. This was because he didn't care about the emperor inheritance or primordial master god inheritance at all. "No problem. Leave this heaven-suppressing Marquis to this emperor. This emperor wants to see if he can suppress the heavens," Lightning Emperor said domineeringly. The 3rd primordial master god inheritor expressed his stance. His aura was like a rainbow, suppressing everything. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled in the surroundings. Interesting, the various gods expressed their stance. It seemed like a chaotic battle was about to break out. Once it started, there would be countless casualties. The ancient heavenly emperor had an indifferent expression. He didn't express his support for the primordial master god inheritance, nor did he say that he wanted to help Yi Qinghan. He was the same as Yi Qinghan. He didn't care about the primordial master god inheritance. He wanted to proclaim himself as the emperor, so he wanted to destroy this primordial master god inheritance. Many people were waiting. They wanted to see how many people were willing to take sides, and how many people wanted to take advantage of the situation. A sword roar shook the void. The Emperor Aura was vast and mighty, exterminating the heavens. Another Emperor Inheritor appeared. However, Zongjing Fu and the others couldn't laugh. They looked at the newcomer with anger. How can my Chu Shi lineage be absent from such a big situation? Boom! Chu Shijun Xian came out of seclusion with the Liang Emperor sword in his hand. Chu Shijun Xian, it seems like your Chu Shi lineage is determined to become enemies with the Primordial Master God Inheritance and Taigu Emperor Inheritance? Dao Sovereign asked with a ruthless expression. Chu Shijun Xian asked with disdain, if I don't help Brother Yi now, will your Primordial Master God lineage let go of the Chu Shi lineage? Clearly, the answer was no. The Chu Shi lineage and the Yen clan were two races that must be destroyed. Whoosh! Some young supreme experts began to shift their positions. They stood in the void and waited for a chance to attack. After killing all the supreme experts, they would be the last supreme experts. Chapter 2662. Both sides had an equal number of supporters, but there were more spectators. If these 8 Supremes were to fight, both sides would definitely suffer, and no one would be lucky enough to escape unscathed. However, if both sides were to suffer, those spectators would definitely crush the 8 of them with lightning speed. There would be no emotions to speak of. At this moment, the next person to express their opinion was most likely Gu Jiutian. Her divine light surged, and her fingertips trembled slightly. She wanted to express her opinion, but she was worried about the Taijiang High Priest's attitude, so she did not make a move in the end. The others had their own restrictions and did not express their opinions. However, in terms of the overall situation, Yi Qinghan was still slightly weaker. He was a newly promoted supreme martial artist, and had no connections or resources. If they were to fight, he would definitely be at a disadvantage, and might even be annihilated. Both sides were in a difficult position. Too many people were waiting to take advantage of the situation, but who dared to express their opinion? It was a great loss of face. Yi Qinghan's eyes flashed coldly. He glanced at Jian Chenxue and the others at the back. He reached out and pulled the district master's sleeve and whispered, "If we were to fight, what are our chances of winning?" The district master's eyebrows twitched, and she replied calmly, "None of the 8 of us will survive." Her tone was very certain. She had already concluded that whoever made the first move would die. In fact, Jingfan Mountain Master also understood that once the battle started, none of the 8 of them would survive. However, she had no choice but to help Yi Qinghan because she did not have any better helpers. How could one become an emperor without a few good teammates? It was just a pipe dream. The district master and Jingfan Mountain Master understood that Su Tianya and Dao Master were not fools. They did not want to make a move at this moment. They were waiting for Yi Qinghan to speak. At least the immemorial Master God's inheritance would not be lost. Yi Qinghan did not care about his reputation. He shrugged and said, "There are too many opportunists. If Dao Master does not want to die, we can choose another day to fight. Let's fight in the sky, just the 2 of us." Humph! Dao Master took the opportunity and said coldly, "Then let's choose another day. I will kill you on the Death Star. 1,000 years later, you and I will fight in the Voracious Wolf constellation." Yi Qinghan said firmly, "If I lose, I will assist you to become an emperor. If you lose, I will assist you to become an emperor. How about it?" "Okay." Dao Master decided without hesitation. "Then open up a path," Yi Qinghan said calmly. Dao Master stepped aside to let Xing Liangshan pass, but his eyes were filled with unwillingness. Yi Qinghan waved his hand and signaled for Jian Chenxue and the others to return to the battle zone. He then bowed to the Jingfan Mountain Lord and said, "Lord Mountain Lord, if you don't have a place to set up camp, you can come to the Jiangnan Immortal Valley." There weren't many experts in Jingfan Mountain, but they were skilled. There were about 7 to 8 of them, and other than Zhongfan, most of them were in the 2nd or 3rd degree realm. Their auras were strong and their battle prowess wouldn't lose out to the other powerhouses. The key was that Jingfan Mountain's Mountain Master's ability was definitely on par with the ancient Heavenly Emperor, otherwise he would have been uprooted long ago. Mountain Master Jingfan looked at her group of people and knew that if there was no one to support each other, she might be fine. However, Zhang Fan and the others might be in danger. She then nodded and said decisively, "We will also head to the Jiangnan Immortal Valley." Whoosh! Yi Qinghan and the others quickly left Xingliang Mountain. The murderous intent in Senior Dao's heart was self-evident. Lianying had captured a few people from the crazed manor, but it had provoked a devil. He had really leveled Xingliang Mountain. Lianying's faction was almost completely wiped out, and only a dozen deity priests of 2nd degree realm and above were still alive. Lianying was seriously injured and coughed up blood. Seeing Yi Qinghan and the others leave, he was so angry that he spat out a mouthful of blood. Dao Master comforted him, "Don't worry, he is dead." Lianying took a deep breath and growled, "Master, you don't have to do it. I will take revenge myself." Dao Master shook his head and sighed, "This person is extraordinary. He is young and promising. He has the attitude of the primordial immortal emperor when he was young. Now that he has the eyes of the flame ancestor, he can see through all the laws and principles in the world. You will not be his opponent 1,000 years later." Lianying was unwilling and gritted his teeth. But what could he do? He could only blame himself for provoking the crazy sect. Arrogant! Gu Jiutian snorted coldly. He glanced at Taijiang High Priest and said, "Taijiang, let's go back to the camp. I have something to say to you." Taijiang High Priest was also trembling. He was shocked by Yi Qinghan's killing intent. Back then, he wanted to seize all the primordial divine sparks and become an emperor. Now that he saw the aura of the younger generation, he realized that he was really old. However, he was even more determined. "Gu Jiutian, when I use you to get the primordial divine sparks, you will understand my will." Taijiang High Priest followed behind Gu Jiutian with a ferocious glint in his eyes. Then, he followed behind Gu Jiutian and left silently. At this time, the ancient heavenly emperor stared at the backs of Gu Jiutian and Taijiang High Priest. He seemed to have caught a glimpse of Taijiang High Priest's fierce gaze, but he was not sure. More than 10 days later, Jiangnan Immortal Valley. Yi Qinxing, who was sitting on the left side of the valley, suddenly opened his eyes. He stood up slowly with the Yan clan's sword in his hand. When he saw Yi Qinghan returning with the others, he immediately hid the sword in his sleeve and waited calmly. Jingfan Mountain Lord did not know that Yi Qinghan was from the Yan clan. Moreover, he had no enmity with the Yan clan. He was a new force. Like Yi Qinghan, he was a super expert with a weak background. Otherwise, he would not have gone to the ancient immortal world alone to search for resources and treasures. Yi Qinghan brought Jingfan Mountain Lord to the Jiangnan Immortal Valley. He bowed and said, "Senior, please tell me where you like. If you want to cultivate in the Immortal Valley, I have no objections." Jingfan Mountain Lord looked around carefully. This was indeed a place with good feng shui. The Jiangnan Immortal Valley had a strong foundation in the ancient immemorial era. Otherwise, they would not have the 9-linked gourd and immemorial yin-yang sword. The fortune here was rich and the surroundings were not bad. There's no need. The mountain range on the left is also very good. It can connect with the Jiangnan Immortal Valley and allow us to form a triangle with the Crazy Manor and Taoist Master. We will be able to attack and defend well. We will just set up camp there, Jingfan Mountain Lord said. Yi Qinghan nodded and did not object. He then looked at Zhang Fan and said respectfully, Senior, I have prepared an immortal technique for you. I found it in the Jiangnan Immortal Valley. It might be very suitable for you. Whoosh. Yi Qinghan then took out an immortal scripture with the words Immemorial Tianluo Codex inscribed on it. The 7 or 8 experts of Jingfan Mountain were shocked. They stared at the Immemorial Tianluo Codex with gleaming eyes. Brother Zhang, you are so lucky. This Immemorial Tianluo Codex is the Jiangnan Immortal Valley's greatest scripture. It definitely won't lose to the Immemorial Tianluo Codex that you have been coveting for a long time, one of the Jingfan Mountain experts said enviously. In order to repay his debt, Yi Qinghan did not give this scripture to Crazy Manor but to Zhang Fan. In Zhang Fan's view, this debt of gratitude could definitely be repaid. Qinghan, this gift is quite precious. Zhang Fan sighed. Yi Qinghan bowed and offered it with both hands, replying firmly, Senior, please accept it. No matter how precious it is, it's not as precious as my life. The only reason I'm still alive is because of your words. Jingfan Mountain Lord nodded in satisfaction. Yi Qinghan was so righteous. He had not risked his life to protect him in vain. Accept it. This is Sect Master Ye's kind intentions, Jingfan Mountain Lord said. Zhang Fan's face was full of smiles. Although his cultivation was not very high, his foresight and investment would definitely make a fourth form expert envious. Zhang Fan took the Immemorial Tianluo Codex with both hands and solemnly said, Okay, I will accept it. You don't owe me anything in the future. We will be friends of the same generation. Yi Qinghan pursed his lips into a smile, but he didn't respond to Zhang Fan's suggestion. In his heart, Zhang Fan's status was on par with the 9 Hells Masters. No matter how he repaid Zhang Fan's kindness would always be there. Chapter 2663. Repaying kindness was a classic example. Unfortunately, they were born in troubled times. Who would dare to say that the people they nurtured would definitely repay kindness? Weren't the 5 primordial god priests of the Qing Zun Immortal Empire living off the empire's salary? The moment the Void Sky Cliff appeared, they turned around and repaid kindness with enmity? Regardless of Zhang Fan's cultivation level, he was happy at this moment. The juniors he nurtured came to repay his kindness. That touched his heart, made him incomparably happy. The people of Jingfan Mountain rejoiced for Zhang Fan. He offended a venerated dragon marquis but gained the friendship of Yi Qinghan. Soon, Yi Qinghan and the others built a few palaces for the 8 people of Jingfan Mountain to cultivate. Then, they received Yu Qingfeng and the others. Yi Qinghan looked at Yu Qingfeng and the others. He knew that they had sacrificed a few people to protect Jian Qinshue and the others. He nodded and said, Kuang Manor owes you a favor. This marquis is aware of your intentions to join Kuang Manor. I will not treat you unfairly in the future. You can go into seclusion first. After 1,000 years, I will introduce you to the people of Kuang Manor. Sect head is too polite. We sincerely want to join Kuang Manor. We are not petty people. Yu Qingfeng and the others immediately bowed and replied. Yi Qinghan nodded with gratification and said, My Kuang Manor would rather go without than have something substandard. The inner sect has developed so many people, but we only have a few tens of thousands of people. The ancient massacre god only has about 300,000 people after the war on the small plain. Don't worry, once you join my Kuang Manor, I will treat everyone equally. I will not be biased towards the inner sect or the ancient massacre god. Many thanks, sect head. Yu Qingfeng and the others blushed. Joining Kuang Manor was definitely the best choice in troubled times. If they joined other forces, they would most likely be cannon fodder. Everyone, go and cultivate. Time waits for no one. I don't have enough resources in my hands. You can use what you have first. I will make up for it in the future. Yi Qinghan reminded them seriously, remember, do not touch the marked places. Those places are filled with divine runes that are enough to kill a first-degree realm expert. Yu Qingfeng and the others responded, bowing and retreating. Each of them chose a suitable place to cultivate. Yi Qinghan walked alone in the Immortal Valley, looking at the flourishing Kuang Manor. The pressure in his heart grew heavier and heavier. Only after becoming the sect master did he understand the importance of resources. He was not a selfish person who would ask the people of Kuang Manor to risk their lives to find resources for him. Instead, he would risk his own life to find resources for them. Tap tap tap, Yi Qinghan came to the front of Sovereign Ye's palace and walked in slowly. This guy was still in seclusion and he looked very serious. His cultivation level had actually inexplicably rushed to the first-degree realm. The key point was that this guy actually didn't have any lightning tribulations. Yi Qinghan looked at Supremacy Yi in surprise. He had clearly entered the first stage for a long time, so why was there no lightning tribulation? After being stared at for a long time, Supremacy Yi couldn't help but open his eyes. Seeing that Yi Qinghan was about to stick to his face, he immediately jumped 3 feet high and shouted, "Are you crazy? Don't you know that you can scare people to death?" Yi Qinghan's old face instantly fell. He snorted and said, "I'm curious why you didn't need to undergo any lightning tribulations when you advanced to the first-degree realm." Seeing that Yi Qinghan's face was full of doubt, Supremacy Ye's mood for seclusion was ruined. He immediately reprimanded in annoyance, "What does it have to do with you? I'm talented and the heavens favor me. Are you jealous?" Slap. Yi Qinghan casually slapped him hard on the back of his head and sneered, "Are you trying to rebel or did you eat gunpowder? Boss was talking to you nicely and you actually scolded me." Supremacy Yi thought that he had also advanced to the first-degree realm and was prepared to be arrogant. However, Yi Qinghan's aura suddenly roared and surged out, almost crushing the order of the palace. He was shocked and immediately nodded and bowed wretchedly. "Boss, please calm down. I'm not fully awake yet and am a little grumpy. Please don't be calculative with me." "Then can you answer my question properly?" Yi Qinghan crossed his arms and sneered. Supremacy Yi nodded and bowed as he said, "Boss, it's not like you don't know me. I'm the Heavenly Fate Demon Emperor and have luck on my body. How many times have I begged the heavens to give you some luck? But the heavens only favor me. I can't do anything about it." Phew, ka. Yi Qinghan took a deep breath and clenched his iron fist. His bones cracked as he looked at that wretched little face. He really wanted to give him a slap. "Hurry up and shut up. Pack up and come with me to find some resources," Yi Qinghan reprimanded in annoyance. Supremacy Yi smiled obsequiously and said, "Boss, don't be envious of me. Anyway, the benefits I get are also benefits you get." Yi Qinghan looked at Supremacy Yi with disdain. This guy's only flaw was that he was too shameless. Supremacy Yi coughed dryly and followed behind Yi Qinghan with his bracelet. They arrived outside the Jiangnan Immortal Valley. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan's figure flashed and came to Yi Qingqing's side. He asked, "Brother Yi, do you know where the Void Ridge has more resources? The best resources are suitable for those above the first stage of the Golden Immortal Realm. Our Kuang Manor is in urgent need of them." Yi Qingqing's range of activity had always been the Void Ridge and the Dead Star. He was very familiar with this place. When he heard Yi Qinghan's question, he immediately perked up. He bowed and said, "Young master, the Void Ridge doesn't have many things, but it has a lot of resources. There are many treasuries under the ruins of ancient powerful forces, but there are many traps. I can't forcefully open them, but I know that there are many resources in the ruins of a tribe of the Yin clan. I took the external resources, but the internal resources have not been opened. If you want, we can try." Yi Qinghan was wild with joy. He did not expect that there would be such good news in the Void Ridge. He immediately said, "Take me there. Young master, please follow me." Yi Qinxing's figure flashed and rushed to the north of Xingliang's Shangxi. That place was a barren swamp filled with forests and poisonous miasma. Powerful archaic creatures ran amok, and the slightest bit of carelessness could lead to death here. However, Yi Qinxing was familiar with this place and often traveled here. There were very few pedestrians in this place. There were only some cannon fodder or kings with slightly weaker cultivation. In order to escape, they fled thousands of miles away, preparing to come here to find some life. Yi Qinghan brought Supremacy Yi and followed Yi Qinxing closely. They sped through the ancient forest. The rivers were densely packed and intersected. Some ancient creatures like wandering insects flicked their tongues. Some creatures could even control lightning or the five elements. They were so powerful that it was somewhat terrifying. Supremacy Ye's eyes flashed with a thieving light, but Yi Qinghan's eyes could see through all laws and principles. He saw some unknown creatures and things, and even some names and usage methods automatically appeared. This was clearly from the Yen ancestor's memory, and it was transmitted to him through his eyes. There were treasures everywhere. Yi Qinghan waved his hand and plundered resources. Immortal rings swallowed immortal treasures and resources. As long as it was a scarce resource and somewhat useful, he would uproot it. Supremacy Yi swallowed his saliva and took the initiative to leave Yi Qinghan. He wanted to search for some treasures himself. However, Yi Qinxing said proudly, "Young master, these goods are not worth mentioning at all. When you reach the depths and can withstand the attacks of the primordial creatures, there are all kinds of primordial treasures there. Some plants can even poison primordial divine generals to death." Yi Qinghan's eyelids twitched. He looked at the resources all around him and was a little reluctant. However, in order to collect all the resources as soon as possible, he gave up on the resources in the periphery and rushed into the depths with Supremacy Yi. Chapter 2664. There were countless ferocious creatures in the depths of the swamp, but the fingernail-sized water bugs and flying bugs could kill people. If they were careless, they could kill a powerhouse. Sovereign Yi had already hidden in Yi Qinghan's body, not daring to show his face. Yi Qinxing's body emitted the thick power of the Yen people's path, blocking the bug's invasion. Yi Qinghan's eyes flashed. He could even see that the fangs of some flying bugs were comparable to holy weapons. They were extremely sharp, but there were too many of them and they could not be killed. They only liked creatures with powerful vitality. Even if it was a primordial beast that was more than 10 times larger than a human, once entangled, it would definitely be gnawed into skin and bones. Roar! Boom! Crack! Crack! Some primordial beasts were surrounded by countless flying bugs. The bone-chilling pain caused them to constantly break trees and mountains. It was a suicidal attempt to get rid of these annoying flying bugs. There were corpses and bones everywhere. Even the bones had been gnawed by 70 to 80% of them. The laws and principles inside had been gnawed away, and they would break at the slightest touch. Buzz! Buzz! Countless flying insects discovered Yi Qinghan and Yi Qinxing, and they rushed over. Their ferocious gazes were terrifying. Whoosh! 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 The Yen people's sword danced like a scorching sun in Yi Qinxing's hand, swallowing countless flying bugs. However, the bugs continued to rush over, not afraid of death at all. Yi Qinghan looked at the countless flying bugs rushing over without even blinking. He asked coldly, "Brother Yi, what kind of bugs are these?" "These are primordial mosquitoes. There are too many of them and they live in the swamp and forest. We can't kill them all. Let's quickly leave this area." "They usually don't leave their territory," Yi Qinxing said hurriedly. Whoosh! In an instant, the primordial mosquitoes covered the sky and covered Yi Qinghan, blocking his vision. The powerful vibrations directly blocked Yi Qinxing's voice. Boom! Whoosh! The fire origin in Yi Qinghan's body shot out, swallowing everything within a dozen meters. The terrifying blue demon fire even directly refined their fangs. Tap, tap. Yi Qinghan slowly walked on top of the swamp. Everywhere he passed, all of the archaic vicious mosquitoes would die tragically. They were densely packed and covered the entire swamp, causing one's scalp to go numb. No one knew how many archaic vicious mosquitoes there were, and no one knew how fierce they were. They were actually so unafraid of death. Boom! Yi Qinghan was annoyed. He punched through the void and swallowed all the ancient mosquitoes in front of him into an alternate space. But these ancient mosquitoes were abnormally savage. They could eat through space and come back from the alternate space. Yi Qinghan shook his head. He increased the temperature of the flames and began to move quickly. Several hours later, the two of them left the swamp and arrived at a vast plain. It had long since become a majestic forest, and there had been no traces of humans for countless years. The entire plain was surrounded by swamps that stretched endlessly. Basically, no one could break through the attacks of the ancient mosquitoes. In the end, they could only retreat. This was why there were no signs of human habitation here. It was also because of this that natural treasures were everywhere. They were also ancient, and there were even some half-human creatures. Some were extremely ugly, but there were also some beautiful women. The Flame Clan valued humanity, so when Yi Qingxing discovered these half-human, half-demon creatures, he did not kill them or disturb them. He only took the resources he needed and left. When Yi Qinghan entered this place, he could not help but take a deep breath. This was a paradise for cultivation. The spiritual energy was so dense that it was solid and directly entered his body. Cultivating here for 10 years was equivalent to cultivating outside for thousands of years. The immortal spiritual energy had already turned into a liquid state that adhered to the surface of his skin. Yi Qinghan changed into a thin set of clothes and released his blood and Flame Clan bloodline. He absorbed the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, and his body was completely bathed in the river of spiritual liquid. A ray of light covered his face, and his soul was being refined. Yi Qingxing did not disturb Yi Qinghan. He silently defended from the side. This place looked like a paradise, but it was actually very dangerous. Many ancient beasts would cross this boundary. Some of them had completely transformed, and their physical bodies were invincible. Their combat power was extremely exaggerated. There were even creatures in the fourth form of the ancient beast. After a long time, Yi Qinghan woke up. The turbid energy in his body was exhaled, and his spirit was refreshed. The fatigue of these years seemed to have been washed away. Why didn't you cultivate here all these years? Why did you come to the inner part of the Death Star? Yi Qinghan asked curiously. Young master, this place is very dangerous. Yi Qingxing immediately replied. Yi Qinghan looked around and did not find any danger. However, he then said indifferently, "Call me boss. I'm not some young master. Everyone in the crazy manor calls me boss. I'm used to it." Yi Qingxing immediately bowed and replied, "Yes, young boss." Whoosh! At this moment, Supreme Yi ran out with a sneaky look in his eyes. He said excitedly, "Boss, this will be my territory from now on." Yi Qinghan rolled his eyes and replied coldly, "I heard it's very dangerous here." "Dangerous my ass. I'm the Heavenly Fate Demon Emperor. All beasts have to kneel when they see me. What danger can there be here?" Supreme Yi said proudly. Roar. Pa whoosh. Just as Supreme Yi finished speaking, a huge figure rushed over, shattering the void. The ancient trees and rocks were shattered. It was unstoppable. It turned into a tiger hunting for its prey, and its fangs directly swallowed Yi Qinghan, Yi Qingxing, and Supreme Yi. Woo woo woo. Whoosh. A foul stench came out of the ancient beast's mouth. Poisonous gas filled the air, destroying the surrounding environment completely. Yi Qinghan was shocked. The other party was too fast. There was no warning at all. He could only wave his palm subconsciously. The sky-covering handprint rebounded and slapped the other party's sharp claws. Then, he pulled Supreme Yi and retreated. Yi Qinxing's reaction was also very fast. Moreover, he had been on guard. His sword pierced through the sky. The tip of the sword pierced through the ancient beast's defense and collided with the beast's fangs. The impact numbed his hand. Then, he followed Yi Qinghan and retreated dozens of meters away. Roar! Roar! The ancient beast actually blocked the joint attack of the two at the same time. Its sharp claws shattered the sky-covering handprint, and its fangs blocked the sharpness of the Yen clan's sword. However, it grimaced in pain. Its ferocious light flashed as it landed on the ground, shaking the area within a radius of several miles. Its huge eyes were like the scorching sun. Its limbs were thick and powerful. Every step it took left a footprint. Its aura was like a rainbow and was unstoppable. Its antennae flashed with light. It could swallow the essence of the sun, moon, and immortal qi. After countless years of cultivation, it already had intelligence. What was even more terrifying was that its power and moves were the most original attack. It was far more terrifying than those of the same level. What is this thing? Yi Qinghan's eyes flashed. He had never seen a creature like this immemorial ferocious beast before, but he felt a strong aura of death. Boss, this is one of the most ferocious creatures in the primordial age, Tao Tai. It is the descendant of the mount of the primordial spirit demon monarch. Although its bloodline is not pure, its combat power is much stronger than mine. It is now in the third realm, which is equivalent to the younger and weaker primordial age's fourth state. It feeds on the gods, the Yen clan, and ancient immortals. In recent years, there have been very few powerful ancient gods, ancient immortals, and masters of the Yen clan in the Void Ridge. It has been eating other primordial fierce beasts to survive, which has caused it to become even more ferocious. I met it once and it chased me for countless miles. Tao Tai? Yi Qinghan had never heard of such a thing, but he knew about the Heaven Spirit Demon Emperor. It was one of the 12 immemorial immortal emperors. He had been dead for countless years. He had only touched his body, and his remaining power could tear apart a dead star and almost kill him. How could his mount be weak? Whoosh. Fortunately, it is at the third stage. Yi Qinghan's forehead broke out in cold sweat. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.